All right, welcome everybody. It is my honor to call our July 23rd work session into order. Let's start with roll call, please, and welcome back, City Clerk.
Mayor Woodard.
Present.
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Here.
Councilmember Matsumoto Wright. Councilmember Doyle.
Present.
And Mayor Pro Tem Wall and Councilmember Page asked to be excused.
Do you have a motion to excuse? I see Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to excuse Mayor Pro Tem Wall and Councilmember Page.
Do we have a second? Got a second from Councilmember Matsumoto Wright. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will take it to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. We will now roll to general public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. We have two people who wish to speak tonight, so let me first read the protocol. Public comments are accepted at designated times during council meetings and at work sessions and become part of the official record. Address the council as a whole and focus on issues rather than individuals. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. Comments exceeding the time limit or violating these guidelines may be terminated. Council does not respond during public comments, and written comments will be included in the official record but will not be read aloud. First is Jackie Trio. You'll have 5 minutes at the podium.
Hi, my name's Jackie Trio. I'm a mom of 2, and I moved here to Mountlake Terrace about 4 years ago. We used to live in the U District, but we loved how walkable Mountlake Terrace is. You know, there's lots of sidewalks, there's great restaurants. I saw a bunch of you in the parade, that was really fun. So we really, really love it here. But as I've been living here, I've noticed that 232nd over here, I live on 52nd, and it's really wide and people speed a lot, especially like early in the morning when people are trying to go to school. My 6-year-old's in 1st grade at Terrace Park Elementary, and sometimes we bike to school and people will honk at us. And my 6-year-old, you know, he's just learning how to bike, so he's kind of like this, and I have to be like, no, it's fine, but it's not. And I'm kind of scared, and even just like crossing the street, I always hold their hands very tightly. I know several other families on my street who have kids that could walk to school, like 4th graders and 6th graders, but they don't. I don't think parents feel comfortable letting them walk to and from school, which was something I did as a kid and when I lived in a little neighborhood community like this. So it's just really kind of unfortunate because it feels like the city has invested so much into making this such a great place to be. Like, you can walk to the library and the post office, and there's parks everywhere. Like, there's 3 parks within 10 minutes of my house. But I don't feel comfortable with letting my kids when they're older, obviously not yet, they're 3 and 6, but I'm worried that if we don't start doing something now, what it will look like. And I know, I saw that you're discussing your phase 2 modifications tonight, so maybe it's too late, but I was looking at that and I saw that in phase 2, you are adding bike lanes, which is great. I love bike lanes and bike safety, but they aren't separated and protected. And I'm sure you guys know that recently a lot of really experienced bicycle riders have died because they didn't have separated, protected bike lanes. And so if we're going through all this effort and you guys are working really hard to make it better for everybody, I think that it would be great to have those extra protections so that kids can ride in there, so that new people who are just moving to the city and trying to get around, I know you want to do what's best for everybody, and I feel like increasing the infrastructure, doing like some speed reduction in neighborhoods. I don't know exactly what tools you would want to use, but I think it's just such a great time right now to be really prioritizing pedestrian safety for everybody. You know, I loved that there were sidewalks when I was pushing a stroller, but I also see people in wheelchairs a lot, especially with the elderly community centers. So I hope that you pause and maybe reconsider that as you're working through your projects. And thank you.
Next is George Stanton. You'll have 5 minutes at the podium.
Hello. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is George Stanton. I saw on tonight's agenda that we had an item around the review and vote on joint resolution requesting Snohomish County funding for regional aquatics. And I've got to say, I'm largely in favor of this. I think it's super important that we maintain an aquatics facility here in Mountlake Terrace. And I think it's critical that we do everything that we can to ensure that we have the funds to support that as soon as possible. Just a little bit about me. I grew up swimming. I joined a swim team when I was 4 years old, and summer league swimming was the highlight of my life every year until I aged out at 18. I coached swimming for 12 years. I ended up being a captain on my varsity swim team in college. It has been a huge part of my life, and having coached 200 kids every summer for years on end, I can see what an impact it makes on kids and how important it is for them. And part of what you need to be able to run something like that is a facility that supports it. And while I love our aquatics facility, I've spent many, many hours there, and I've spent a lot of time in facilities like it, I am worried about its longevity, and I think that we need to do what we can to ensure that we continue to have one. Swimming is really an essential skill around here. We have so much water. And so I think it's really critical that we offer swim lessons and be able to have a place where people can learn how to swim. It's a safety issue, particularly when you think about places like Lake Ballinger, which is super fun, but it's not lifeguarded. So it would be really wonderful to both have more kids know how to swim and also provide an alternative as well. It's a lifelong skill. It's really great, particularly as people age. Most other sports are really tough on the joints, but swimming, you get that anti-gravity effect and gets you the ability to have that aerobic exercise. As you age, I see a lot of older folks when I'm at the pool, so it really does benefit a wide segment of the population. When I was younger, the number one thing I cared about in high school was my swimming times, and that meant a lot of time at the pool and a lot of time making sure that my lungs were in tip-top shape. I say that to say it helps keep kids out of trouble, and so I think that's a benefit as well. Also, if you look at a facility, it brings in opportunities to stimulate our local economy. So it's not just about whether or not we have the facility. It also has the opportunity to bring in clubs and teams and events and meets that are ultimately going to benefit the entire community as well and help support it. Another thing about our pool right now is that we've got one big pool and it's very hot. If anybody is a regular lap swimmer, you know that a hot pool is great for kids, but not so great if you're trying to swim laps. You'll overheat very quickly. And I think with bringing in an aquatic center, we have the opportunity to support many more uses than we do right now. And it's something that's in really high demand. So, we have not a whole lot of pools in the area. I think I read we have 4 in Snohomish County that are public. pools, but, you know, there are clubs as well. If you look at any of the local swim clubs in the area, they all have gigantic wait lists, and I'm not exaggerating when I say many of those are 10-year wait lists. So if you're looking for an opportunity for your kiddo to get started in summer swimming, they're thin, and you know, it can be really expensive to join a private swim club. I've got more, but I see I'm limited on time. I would just really encourage you to support this resolution and do everything that you can to support bringing a pool to the area and ensure that we continue to have access to a place where our kids can learn and grow and swim. Thank you.
No one else signed up for public comment.
All righty, thank you very much. Thank you to both of you for taking the time, and we also have some written comments that are shared with us in the agenda for folks who didn't necessarily see that just yet. So let's go ahead and keep moving forward. We'll now move to review of ordinances adopting code modifications for land use tables, and that is with our CD director. Welcome, the floor is yours. And it's item, correct? Item. See, that's why I didn't do it. I will not forget that now. Item. Should have did that when the mic was off.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. So this item will centralize the city's various land use tables into a new chapter for improved simplicity, consistency, and user-friendliness, and also provide a better method to address use-related standards. It also allows the city to address land use updates in a less cumbersome manner than we have now. There are several mandated land use updates that need to be integrated into the use tables coming from recent state legislation. Those are childcare centers, co-living, emergency housing, permanent supportive housing, and transitional housing. So this project includes those required updates while also making those organizational improvements. The Planning Commission has discussed this item at 2 separate work sessions. They also took those materials home and reviewed them individually for a month, providing comments to staff in preparation for the July 13th meeting. Their discussions will continue through August. Okay, so right now the municipal code has permitted land uses scattered throughout 10 different chapters. We also have provisions for home occupations and temporary uses located in the general provisions chapter. So this proposal will first amend chapter 1920 to reflect the correct zoning districts and add a purpose statement for each. Then the permitted uses section will be removed from each individual chapter. And then a new permitted land uses chapter is proposed, located at chapter 1925 to address all use-related regulations. And then the land uses will be listed in matrix form, categorized into 5 different tables by general type. So those would be residential uses, commercial uses, industrial, community, cultural, and recreational, and utility uses. There are corresponding restrictions following each table. Those restrictions are currently not addressed very well in the municipal code. They're often in definitions for each use, which is not really the best practice. So this proposed method avoids regulatory definitions and puts everything into a single location. So because of that, the definitions will also need to be amended to accommodate the changes. We're bringing definitions into alignment with the terms that are being used in the tables and ensuring that the definitions reflect what we want them to say. So there's a preliminary list of the definitions that we're proposing to change on page 28 of your agenda. It's important that this project is coordinated with the zoning phase 2 project, which is the next item on your agenda. That will implement several new zones that are on the tables and remove several others. So this project affects a lot of chapters in Title 19. Most of these are listed because they're repealed by zoning phase 2. They become obsolete zones, or they otherwise are replaced. The amended chapters are to remove the permitted uses sections. In Chapter 19-120, you may recall, we refer to this one as the junk drawer chapter. This one gets further chipped away again by this project. We are relocating the home occupation and temporary permits provisions from that chapter into the new permitted land uses chapter. So the drafts that are in your agenda packets are very preliminary. They're still being discussed by the Planning Commission. They will be continuing those discussions through the month of August. We anticipate we'll be bringing a recommendation to the City Council in September, and it is tentatively on the September 3rd council agenda for review and vote. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
All righty, any questions, comments, or feedback? All right. Oh, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you. I'll just say thank you quickly. I appreciate that even though the Planning Commission is working through their process, the opportunity to take a look at where things are at and ask questions and provide feedback. I don't have questions or feedback at this point, but I do appreciate the opportunity and all of the work that's going into getting all of this updated.
Great.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments, questions, or feedback? Looking online, seeing none. Looking down the table, seeing none. I will just echo Councilmember Murray's points. I would have done that as well, just to say thank you. I believe that this is where the true heroes are, and folks never know about you. But making sure that when someone looks at a code, they don't have to wonder, is it reading the same if I look in a different section? So just that clarity, I think all of us on this council at some point or another have been given a first-hand lesson in how that feels for the client, if you will, or the person trying to work through that code. So it's also a thank you on our side to make our jobs easier. With that, you are, as they say, unless you're up next, again, free to move about the country. But it sounds like you're up next. So we'll keep it moving forward. And I do feel like Southwest Airlines is going to come after me at some point doing that. Review of the ordinances adopting code modifications for zoning phase 2, which you were just alluding to. I should have known you were up next.
Okay. The purpose of this item is to implement the comprehensive plan, which was adopted by the City Council in 2024. The plan calls for 4 new zones. We've got the employment zone, manufactured home park zone, the neighborhood mixed-use zone, and the gateway mixed-use zone. So this item will adopt development regulations for those zones before they're implemented on the zoning map. There is significant legislative history for this, particularly as it's required by the comp plan, which was adopted in October of 2024 by the City Council. The Housing Action Plan was then adopted in December of 2025, and that contains action items supporting this as well. Planning Commission has been discussing draft regulations since May. The environmental analysis conducted as part of the comprehensive plan studied the impacts of the city's assigned growth targets and 3 different growth alternatives. The preferred growth alternative was ultimately adopted in the plan as the future land use map with all 4 new zones on it. The next step now is to adopt a new zoning map, but before we can do that, we need development regulations in place that will apply to those zones. So that is the proposal now, which will also be coordinated with the land use tables project that I was just discussing to ensure that those zones are appropriately addressed in the municipal code. So starting with the employment zone, this one replaces the current light industry office park zone, which is in the northwest corner of the city in the Melody Hill neighborhood. The LIOP regulations are in Chapter 1965, so that will be repealed and replaced with the employment district regulations. We also have the sexually oriented adult businesses overlay in that area that follows the zoning boundary, and that's in Chapter 1970. That overlay is outdated. It's from 1995, I believe, and it's not necessary for addressing these types of uses. So the proposal will also repeal 1970 and instead address adult businesses in the land use tables. Melody Hill residents provided input to the city during the comprehensive plan engagement process, and staff have also continued outreach to the businesses located in this area in the last month or so, and we're integrating that input into the drafts.
You okay to take questions?
Yes.
I should know this answer, and it's probably intuitive. The adult businesses, so that's going to be your marijuana shops, the casino, the bottle shop? Is that what we're talking about? None of those?
The marijuana shops are actually addressed separately in the code.
Okay.
So it is not that. This is more sexually oriented entertainment businesses. I'm not sure we actually have any.
Okay, I was going to say, we don't have that, dude. Please, please jump in. I'm like, what?
It was done during the days of adult bookstores, which we don't have anymore, I don't think.
Right.
That and what else was there? Huh? Oh, well, that's different. But it was mainly adult bookstores and one other thing that I can't remember what it was, but both of those businesses don't exist anymore, and that's why actually saying what the businesses are when we went through all of this is, I'm seeing very, very difficult today because they disappear. And we don't know what new businesses are going to come in to take its place.
Right. So we have a really long and complicated definition for it also in the code that uses words that are, I don't think should be in a municipal code. So I'm also proposing to eliminate that and just use a far more simplified definition. So that will all change. There are some state regulations on how you can regulate the siting of these businesses, and that's just how I propose to address that.
Thank you, and thank you
Yeah.
for that background.
Okay, the manufactured home park district. This replaces the mobile home park zone, which previously had no regulations in Title 19. We have some outdated regulations in Chapter 1530, which is in the building and construction title, and those need to be amended. Essentially, that chapter, when we're done with it, will only say that manufactured homes are allowed wherever stick-built housing is allowed, subject to applicable building codes, and that's consistent with state law. So we are proposing a new chapter in Title 19 for new and existing manufactured home parks, and this will address development regulations as well as provisions for pre-existing parks. The intent is to preserve the parks that we have, so we want to avoid issues for those existing sites as much as possible. Neighborhood mixed use is a new zone, and they are scattered throughout the city in nodes. This will require a new chapter in the municipal code. We're proposing to address both mixed use zones together in the same chapter. We've been doing outreach to the community and affected property owners, and that input is being considered by the Planning Commission. So we're also using the comprehensive plan vision statement for guidance on land uses and site and design standards for the mixed use district. Land uses are being discussed by the Planning Commission as part of the land use tables discussion, and they reviewed design concepts at their last meeting. They are set to review draft regulations next week. Gateway mixed use is only in one location along Van Rye Boulevard. This will replace the freeway tourist zone. The land uses here are envisioned in the comprehensive plan to be more regionally scaled, and the development is intended to be more intensive. Again, this is being considered with the neighborhood mixed use because the overall design vision is very similar. Again, the Planning Commission is continuing to discuss this item through August, and we anticipate bringing a recommendation to the City Council in September. And this one is also tentatively on the September 3rd Council agenda for review and vote. This item and the previous item need to be adopted at the same time. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on this one.
Perfect. Questions, comments, feedback? Seeing none, we will just end it with the same comment as before. Thank you very much. I mean, these are very complicated codes. So, we do have a question, please. Councilmember Matsumoto Wright, please.
So for the mobile home zones, that protects our mobile homes to remain mobile homes forever, except for when it gets sold to another entity that wants to change it and comes to us to change the zoning. Can a future city council change the zoning if they wanted to?
They can propose a rezone if it is no longer being used as a mobile home park. They would have to abandon the use. But the intention is for the existing mobile home parks to stay mobile home parks.
Right.
And so that is the zone where that use is
And we
allowed.
have only 2 mobile home parks left, right? One on 44th and one on 244th.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, because I would like to see us try to keep that as mobile home forever. And I don't know if we can put anything in there that can prevent.
So currently what we're looking at is that they would have to show that it's been abandoned and that it's not viable for
If
any
everybody
use.
moves out of the mobile home park
Yes.
and nothing else, there's just going grass. Okay, well, all right.
The city of Everett did something recently that's similar, so we're
different-
using that as
yeah.
guidance.
Pardon, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. The city of Everett recently adopted a very similar ordinance for their
Okay.
mobile home parks. And so I talked to their staff and we were using that as kind of a starting point.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. I will at least echo that I agree that we would want our policies to keep them as manufactured home parks as long as possible. I know that there was a point there where people were getting pressured out, and so I'd be a little nervous about the idea of it being, I don't think you said viable, but it's just grass and abandoned. I'm like, well, what happens if I get pushed out? Can I then make the claim that it's abandoned? Well, if you pushed everybody out, that's not the same as abandonment. So I'd want to make sure that that's covered.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, many of them the pads themselves are individually owned, so
Yeah.
I think the likelihood is fairly low
Okay.
that all of them would move out.
Yeah. Like I said, the argument has been they're being pushed out, like literally having the rates tripled, and you don't have any options. Anyway, we'll deal with that if it comes down the road, but I appreciate Councilmember Matsumoto's right of making sure that we at least discourage it through our policies. So any other comments, questions, or feedback? Seeing none, again, I'll just pick up where I was leaving it, which is just to say, and again, outside person looking at this has no idea how much work went into you being able to say that so cleanly, so quickly and efficiently, and us not being confused, because that's a lot of code mixed out in different portions of the system, at the state level and at our level and even at the county level, and to coordinate all of that. And to hear that you're doing that by talking to other cities, not repeating wheels or reinventing wheels, we appreciate that as well. Good use of your time. On that, I believe you're now free to move about the country.
Thank you.
And we will now move to, if I'm following correctly, number 6, the review of the Ecology Stormwater Grant for 220th and 70th Water Quality Project. And let me prep the council. Patrick is trying to give us heartburn when you pull up his staff report, or excuse me, his presentation, because it has his predecessor on there instead of him. And we love you, Patrick. We don't want it. We love Laura too, but we don't have to have her come back this way. And me, I just went, Laura's here. Oh, teasing, Patrick. Happy to have you here, brother.
I don't think I'm sharing my screen. Let's see. I'm a millennial. You'd think I'd be better at this. I think I got it. Beautiful. Okay, well, that gets woken up. Thanks for having me once again, Mayor, Council. Great to see y'all. I'm excited to be coming back for a second time with good news in a row. I think that's pretty exciting. So this evening, we're going to be reviewing a little bit about the 220th and 70th Water Quality Project. And I realize I am not Laura Reed, but I had a nice conversation with her at a local watering hole recently about this, and so I can assure you she gives this presentation her blessing. But we are specifically going to be talking about a funding source that we have become on the final funding list from the Department of Ecology for our water quality project over there on 220th and 70th. If you remember from previous presentations, mostly by Laura, but a little bit by me as well, this project is intended to take the same Melody Hill area that will be getting that zoning update. Will be currently the stormwater in that area is totally untreated before it discharges into Hall Creek, which eventually ends up in Lake Ballinger. 220th is our busiest arterial in the city, as I'm sure any of you who have been there around 5 p.m. know. So there are pretty significant water quality impacts, particularly from vehicles, but also from some of the land use types in this area. And so this project would take 32 acres of impervious surface that is currently untreated and treat that entire area. That's just the impervious surface in this zone as well. As you can kind of see on the map here, those storm lines running into that red circle are also draining these pervious areas too. So in total, it's about 70 acres of land that will have treatment for water quality, which is pretty cool. The grant itself is from the Department of Ecology. It's part of the water quality combined funding procedures. The total value of the grant is $4,710,000. We estimate construction would begin in spring of 2027 and conclude in the late summer or the fall of the same year. There are two funding sources within the grant. There's the trying to remember the name. It's the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which is CWSRF, and then the State Financial Assistance Program. So about 75% of the grant is covered by CWSRF, and 25% is covered by SFAP, as it's known. So that breaks out to $3,831,000 and $879,601, respectively. Normally, the SFAP grant would have a 15% match. It's a direct grant. However, the CWSRF funds are what's known as a forgivable principal loan. So as long as we meet the conditions of the loan, we don't have to pay back the principal. So we can use the CWSRF fund to cover the match in the SFAP. So with the grant, the estimated cost to the city would be $0. So the work is to be done by a combination of consultants. We've been working with Jacobs Engineering on the design of this procedure, and they've been doing a really great job. And so they'll continue assisting us with final design and construction management. Myself and other city staff will be involved as project managers and inspectors. And then we'll also have to go out to bid for a construction contractor. One of the things that's really exciting about this project is it completely fulfills our permit requirement to treat a certain acreage of stormwater. We only have to treat 3.5 acres of stormwater every year per our permit. So we will be treating 10 times the amount that we're required to be. So pretty exciting to be able to have that big an impact. It also kind of follows through on the hard work that Laura kicked off and that Environmental Programs has continued to work on. A couple more notes about the grant, something I thought might be relevant for you all to know. The CWSRF funding is partly an EPA federal pass-through. So there are some additional reporting requirements that go along with this grant funding. Some other kind of details about how we have to do the build. So the majority of the projects or the materials used in the project have to be made in the United States. We have to do additional community outreach. We have to get the opinion of legal counsel. There's a more extensive environmental and cultural resource review process. There's some project signage where we have to recognize both Ecology and EPA and thank them for their contribution to our efforts. We have to submit quarterly progress reports, which I've been doing on other grants, so I've gotten really familiar with that process. So pretty smooth and easy. We have to do some fair wage reporting and then also make sure that we're engaging with disadvantaged businesses. So that's typically women and people of color owned businesses. And then we also have to have a council resolution accepting the loan. So the discussion this evening is looking at these details of the loan, giving you some of the highlights. We don't have a negotiated loan agreement yet. So Ecology has a goal of finishing all those negotiations by the end of the year. I think we'll be quicker on that, but we've started that process a little early just to make sure we're keeping things moving along. So for this evening, I just kind of wanted to give you some of the details, some of the funding guidelines that will be required to meet and some of the administrative requirements. And then I'll be coming back later in the year. I don't have an exact date for y'all yet. With the opportunity to hear a little more about the specifics that have been negotiated. But I wanted to get your perspectives on it, and if there were any things you wanted to make sure we incorporated in those negotiations as well. So that's kind of the main conversation piece for the evening. But just to show a little bit about what we can potentially get out of this, that stormwater will be routed from the green arrows on 220th into the orange ones on 70th. There will be 4 water quality filter vaults, which you can see a detail of down there in the bottom right corner. The material in the bottom of the water quality filter is essentially sand, biochar, coir material, which is coconut fiber, and then a proprietary media mix, and it will make a significant impact on water quality, particularly for a chemical called 6-PPDQ. If you've heard of that, it's a tire additive that is lethal to salmon, particularly coho salmon, which are one of the only species that we still have in Hall Creek and in Lake Ballinger. So we're protecting not only our human quality of life because these are potentially toxic to people, but also our non-human neighbors. And so that's part of why Ecology was so interested in this project. We were listed 65th out of 120 projects on the funding list, and so that's pretty exciting. So there's a lot of interest. The one other thing I wanted to mention is that the funding will come, is some of the final funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law that passed in 2021. So these are funds that have already been dedicated and so are a little guardrailed from changes that could potentially be concerning. So when we do come back, the request will be to have authorization for the city manager to accept $4,710,000 in grant funds for the final design and construction of the water quality treatment system at 220th and 70th Street Southwest. And opportunity for questions and discussion.
All right, questions, comments, feedback. I have a level setting one, personal. I'm looking at that second to last slide. That was live time, if you will. Is 70th and 220th basically the bottom of the hill? If I was going, looks like west, I would turn right, and that would be Primera?
Yes, yeah, okay. It's right across the street from the Primera campus.
Perfect. So then I think I am going to have this right question. Sorry, I want to start off with my own question. So where the orange line is, just because I can ask the question, any pedestrian improvements that we can do while this is happening?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, because the project is cutting across a crosswalk, we're actually required by the Americans with Disabilities Act to upgrade those crossings. So we will have improved pedestrian safety and then also accessibility. There's some challenges with how much we can improve the grade on that southeast corner because 220th is so steep a hill. Yeah. But we will be making it as good as we possibly can across 70th there.
Excellent, wonderful to hear. See it, and I was thinking to myself, my bus stop was around that corner, and so you have to make a decision when you're in that valley as a walker. Okay. And so I was like, hey, if you can do something along there, let's do it. Okay, that said, questions, comments, feedback. It looks like Councilmember Doyle online.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a quick question. So you had said that the media is sand and the coconut fiber and whatnot. How long does that last? Does it need to be replaced? And in the future, is there a cost to the city to maintain this?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking. So maintenance is highly variable on these kinds of filtration units. So it's really dependent on volume, particularly of sediment. So every 6 months to a year, based on the manufacturer's recommendation, the upper layer, which is the mulch and the coir material, will often need to be refreshed. That's relatively cheap and can be done with a Vector truck. And Laura worked really hard, and I've followed up on making sure that our operations and maintenance folks have input in how this is designed. So this is part of why we're going with this media filter basin. It's these 4 large cells that we can just put a Vector hose down in and kind of slurp all that top stuff up. Then the actual media itself, I don't remember the lifespan on the top of my head. I want to say it's 10 to 15 years, but I'll make a note of that and make sure that when we come back, I get the concrete number for you. So, but it will require maintenance, but it's relatively simple. And we have been working with the contractor on, or with the manufacturer on supporting that effort. So,
Okay, great. Thank you.
Others, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel like I'm the wrong person to do this, but I feel like somebody needs to hype up and say, oh my gosh, I'm not super excitable, but I mean, $4.7 million in grant is, I mean, without matching funds required from the city is, I mean, I don't know how that happens, but thank you for making that magic happen. That is incredibly exciting. I mean, the project itself is exciting in terms of impact, and I appreciate that we continue to look for ways to ensure that as we grow, we're helping to mitigate the impact to our natural environment. We had a nice communication in our written communications tonight about the importance of nature. And so anyway, I appreciate all of the work, I appreciate all of the work. I'm excited about the project and incredibly grateful to be able to move forward with something that we wouldn't be able to move forward with as a city otherwise without incredible work to make those grants pair up and work together. So thank you for that. And no concern, I assume no concerns, you kind of spoke to it, but I guess I will ask no concerns about meeting the requirements of the grant.
I don't think so. We should be able to do it. And this is a major priority for us. I mean, I would drop anything to do this in particular. This is regionally unique. It literally puts Mountlake Terrace on the map in terms of this kind of work. There's not really any other facilities like this in the state, and even possibly larger. That's part of why Ecology was so excited about it. And just to give the credit to our consultants and to Laura and all the teams who put the work into this, you know, it's really takes a village, like you all know. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Any others? Questions, comments, feedback? Seeing none, we'll end with, Councilmember Matsumoto Wright.
So just
please.
at the last moment, I know we've been working on this for a long time, a really long time. So I'm glad to see it come together. And hopefully it will help with some of the flooding also that happens over there. Is this not connected?
Are you looking at on 216th up north of Primera or down in?
There's a stream down.
Yes, yeah, that runs through the center, Hall Creek running through the center of the business park there. Yeah, it's not designed for the purposes of flood control, but we anticipate that it will have those benefits because currently that pipe discharges into the culvert under 220th. And so all that water just hits right above Nelson Business Park. And then it's constrained by multiple culverts within the business park. And so it really doesn't have a lot of space to move quickly. And so this sends the majority of that water. Some will still discharge up above, but I think it's 85% will move south and discharge further south in the business park. So it should help provide some relief down there as well. And then also because it's going through the filter medium, that will slow the water down as it enters, and it is flow controlled as well. So it should have those benefits, even if that's not the purpose.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, feedback? Seeing none, we'll end with a couple of mine. I want to echo, that's amazing, $4.7 million. Unfortunately, I have to ask, what happens if it's 4.8?
That's a good question. Depending on the conditions for why, Ecology can increase the amount of funding. So they have kind of reserves to allow
They got
those
their own
kinds of things to happen.
Wonderful to hear. Okay, I just have to ask, in the spirit of volatility out there when it comes to supply command and supply chains and all that, so appreciate hearing that answer. The second one is recognizing now I know where that street is, there are a number, and somehow even an ice rink down that street and gets a lot of use. So I presume we have a plan, because although it won't impact my day, that orange is going to impact a whole lot of other people's days. So I want to make sure people know we see your business down there. We got a route to get to you, and it isn't wait 20 minutes. That's a water main joke. But nonetheless, just kind of recognizing that policy won't work on that street. So I hope that we have something planned.
Yep, so there's kind of two components of that. One, we're phasing the project to have night work for a couple of sections, particularly when we're working on 220th, because it's just not feasible to do that during the day. And then I've also been engaging with the business owners at the property that enters 70th to communicate about how people might be using their parking lot to get through, what some of those considerations are when the bingo hall that's there gets busy when they let out. And then actually we're doing some zoning work with Brooke. I was doing some zoning work with Brooke and Ryan about the Melody Hill area, and we were engaging with the business owners there. So we're continually having those communications.
And for the record, I never had a doubt. I just wanted the folks listening in to know that, yes, we are thinking about that stuff as well, because again, there will be people impacted, even though there's a greater good here, a great good here, to say the least. So any other questions, comments, or feedback about this? And seeing none, I will wrap with a comment. It's not about this, it's about you specifically, which is for folks that don't know, we do have a Adopt a Drain. Councilmember Matsumoto Wright, myself, and I believe William, Councilmember Page might be a member as well, maybe others here as well. Laura, did you say Laura? Maybe Councilmember Sonmore is. Well, anyway, the point of us is a number of us are part of that, and hopefully we noticed this change. I noticed it immediately and want to give you the credit, which is usually when they ask us for the numbers, it's thank you for your work and all this, and that's always nice. But this time it came with education. Hey, you curious what you're sweeping up? Because yes, I was very curious what the heck I've been sweeping up, because there's so much of it, and it was just a wonderful, quick lesson that I didn't know I wanted the answer to and didn't have the time to look it up. And so that it came sitting there for me to look at it when I wanted to, with pictures and everything. It was just wonderful. And I definitely passed that information along to colleagues, because folks had been asking, what is happening? And for the record, the answer is the male trees are the reason we're having to sweep up so much, which I found to be appropriate somehow. So that said, thank you for that addition. And since we brought Laura into the group, let us be as clear as possible. We are so grateful that you are here. We miss you, Laura, but you have your own mark, and you've been doing a wonderful job. And I'm just giving that one little example that had a big impact, at least in my life, because it's very interesting stuff. So that said, we know my phrase, you're free to move about the country now. And we will now move to number 7. Yes, number 7, which is the presentation performance measures of, man, that's just horrible. Presentation performance measures for strategic plan.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I'm going to start off tonight, but each of us is going to have a little piece of this presentation, so we'll kick it off. And I asked Carolyn to share the presentation for me, so because I don't actually know how to do it. I just watch people do it, so.
In the city clerk's world, that's called job security.
You're right. No pressure, everybody's just looking at you. So the purpose of tonight's presentation, as you know, Council adopted the strategic plan in 2024, and our team created performance metrics to coincide with the plan and measure progress toward those strategic plan goals. Many of the goals are based on the community feedback from the surveys that we conduct with Polco, and you heard the results of the most recent survey at your May 28th council meeting. So the agenda for tonight is to review and discuss the performance measures based on the strategic goals adopted by Council in 2024. 4 goals are growing our vibrant community, responsible governance to ensure the desired level of service, an informed and engaged community, and environmental sustainability and resiliency. So you see with each of those goals, there were several objectives underneath. For growing our vibrant community, the objective centered around placemaking, creating opportunities for diverse and affordable housing options, continuing to foster connectedness and inclusivity in our community, economic development, investing in town center to attract development, and planning to redevelop the recreation pavilion. For the responsible governance to ensure the desired level of service, the objectives included ensuring we have sufficient resources to meet the desired levels of service in each department, making sure that we invest in technology and other opportunities like lean processes and partnerships to enhance the efficiency and reduce the cost of government, engage with the community to evaluate solutions for our structural budget gap, promoting public assistance tools for our community, and evaluating how our city can provide more equitable service delivery. For the goal of an informed and engaged community, the objectives are to engage community in planning for infrastructure improvement, implementation of the new community engagement plan, and the community ambassadors program. The council also would like to identify subsidies for low-income families for access to broadband internet. And finally, environmental sustainability and resiliency. This goal centers around planning for climate change with an emphasis on community health and environmental justice, and planning for emergency climate-related crises. The goal also strives to improve transportation alternatives. So you'll see throughout the presentation, the slides are organized by the strategic goal and by the department or division that is responsible for those objectives. Each performance measure has a target goal and the 2025 data. So from the Polco survey, the data is highlighted in green, black, or orange. Green means the city is improving. Black is a steady state, not much change. And the orange is trending downward or negatively. And staff, each of the team members will explain details around each of the key trends. There's context for a lot of these that we can explain. So, citywide, as far as performance measures go, you can see on the screen there, all of them are green or black. Community members rate our community as good or excellent, as a good or excellent place to live. 2022, you can see the trend line there, 85 to, in 2026, we're at 92%. So it's a solid increase. Valuing and respecting residents from diverse backgrounds from 65% to, it's actually 72%. We had a typo on there, so that 80% is not the right number. 72% is. So still a solid increase there. The demographics mirroring the demographics of employees mirroring the population. Pretty steady state at the moment. Haven't changed much one way or the other. And then making all residents feel welcome. You can see we're at 73%, and the goal was 90% or better, so we've still got some work to do there. Continue to work on those pieces. I did want to highlight the number of volunteer hours logged. So you can see the increase. And the increase, I think, one of the biggest changes is in 2025, we had over 3,200 hours, volunteer hours logged, and that's up from a little over 2,000. So we have a big increase in volunteer hours, but it's part of that is also explained because previously DEIC hours were not being logged. So that accounts for a significant part of that increase. Still an upward trend, however. So next, I'm going to turn it over to our Economic Development Manager, Ryan, and he's going to talk about the economic development goals and where we're at. So,
Actually, before we do that, because I have a feeling there's a lot of information coming our way, just so we can all level set, making all residents feel welcome. It's got to be 90% or better. How do we know it's 73?
so that's a good question. Did you have from the Polco survey is something that
Okay.
I think that that's mostly where we're taking that from.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. Well, good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Ryan Dawson. I serve as the city's Economic Development Manager. So this slide will highlight the 4 performance measures used to track our economic development efforts in 2025. So the first measure is the number of new mixed-use developments recruited to the city. This is specifically measured from those where our engagement ultimately resulted in permits. Unsurprisingly, that goal of 1 was not met, and that remains consistent or steady with 2024. However, it's important to view that metric in the broader context of development to where, the capital markets have remained kind of extremely challenging through the past couple of years. Developments are facing high interest rates, elevated construction costs, and limited access to financing, meaning that very few mixed-use developments are receiving funding to move forward in the greater Puget Sound region. But despite that, staff continues to advance projects that are already going through our process. So as market conditions improve, we'll be well positioned. And I expect this number, some years we might get 2 or 3 at the same time, the rest it might be 0. Development kind of takes a long time to get through the pipeline. So our second measure tracks business retention contacts. So this is me going out and meeting business owners and different organizations here in the city. We have surpassed the 5 per month goal for 2025, which would be a total of 60 if my math is correct. I would like to thank and recognize a lot of this is made easy because of our wonderful partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, their steady membership growth, and also their well-attended networking meetings make this very easy for me to go out there and engage with our community and business community. So the third and fourth measures, I think, actually paint a very positive and somewhat surprising picture given kind of the economy and state of economy nationwide these days. But these are based off of business license data. So in 2025, the total number of business licenses issued were 316. That is a 12% increase from 2024, which was actually 283. Our goal of 294 was obviously then surpassed. The nuance with this is this also includes like rental business licenses, any renewal that has to occur. But it shows both sides of, we have new businesses coming in, and also our existing businesses are reaffirming, their interest and investment into this community and want to conduct commerce in Mountlake Terrace. And the last measure I have is number of new jobs created. Based off the business license data, that is 352 for 2025. Which is a significant increase from 24, which was 209. This has a little bit of a nuance as well. As a business gets their license renewed. This might not necessarily be new jobs created. We need to do a little more digging on how to better display that data. But it's definitely a positive outlook, as we saw a lot of new businesses come in 2025. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Sweet. Cool. And I'll turn it over to community development next.
Hello again. Okay, so I have 5 performance measures to report on. So first is the total number of housing units that are below 80% of the area median income that are constructed. And the 182 per year that actually came from me. I didn't see that there was a goal adopted. And so that came from evenly distributing our housing target allocations for everything below the 80% income band by the 20 years to arrive at 182 per year. So as Ryan mentioned, the development pipeline and how tied it is to economic conditions, there are or were several applications in review but not yet constructed in 2025. So 0 doesn't look good, but that's what it is for 2025. For number of building permit applications processed, the goal was 2,244. There were 1,631. So I believe in either 2024 or 2025, the department consolidated permits. So where somebody would have to apply for a whole slew of different permit applications to build a single structure, they consolidated it all into one. So I think that probably has something to do with that, particularly given the large number of inspections that were completed above and beyond the goal of 8,545. For housing units built, that is also far below the goal of 289. Again, I think that's due to the economic conditions. And then percent of permits reviewed within schedules set in policy and law. So the goal was 99%. The actual was 87%, and the reason that's green is because it shows an upward trend over the year prior to that. So happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Matsumoto Wright.
Thank you. Well, I think that the number of total housing units that are below 80%, that probably, it is a total number divided by so many things. And it really isn't a number that we probably should have up there, because when one building is done, you'll have several hundred units, and the next year you'll have 0, because you're not going to have that type of growth every single year. And so maybe looking at it as a goal of so many units per 5 years, more than 1 year. And then the number of permit applications, yeah, I agree with you that we had a lot of permits this past year that isn't in those numbers. So, and then getting back down to the number of housing units built per year, that again is the same thing. It would be nice to make it just even, like 100 units every year, but that's not, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like that. And so 1 year you might get 50, another year you'll get 0, another year you get 1. So again, looking at it from several years instead of just 1 year might help.
Yeah, I agree.
Appreciate those
My
comments.
2 cents.
Appreciate the comments. Any other questions, comments, or feedback? Then we'll end with mine. And it goes back to the building permits and really just my own edification. I can make sense of, well, if you have me go to 5 different places and I only have to go once, I appreciate that, even if it messes with your numbers. But is there a different way to look at this in terms of if 1,600 were the actuals, how many didn't get done in 2025? I don't know if that's a fair question. I'm not actually asking you that, but like, is that a way to look at this as well to make sure we're, and maybe that's answered by the bottom 1% within schedule set and policy and laws. Maybe those go hand in hand. So maybe put them closer together so I don't have to think too far, because it just seems like 1631 seems red, but it also seems like, no, if there was only 1632, and I only didn't get one done last year, but I don't know that's a way to measure this either, but for it to have some type of meaning, just trying to look at it from that perspective.
Right. I think it's a combination of the two, because previously an applicant would have to apply separately for a different mechanical permit, a separate plumbing permit, a separate electrical permit on top of their building permit. Now it's all consolidated into one. So, that does eat into the numbers and make it look worse, but it is a net benefit for the community. Yeah. But then at the same time, yes, that does show that there are a certain percentage of permits that aren't being issued on time.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and again, I'm just looking at this as, it makes sense, and I'm also like, that's too much red for you when we know you're rocking. So how do you make that look a little bit more reflective of what's actually happening? Mm-hmm. And like I said, I don't know that we track how many aren't done on time other than the 87%. That would mean that 13%, whatever that number is my answer, right? Okay, perfect. So you are tracking it. All right, any other questions, comments, or just your own self-interested question like mine? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jeff Betts, Recreation Parks Director for the city. And this is still in the same goal, growing our vibrant community. So there are a few recreation performance measures listed here, and these are the ones that you're probably most familiar with. We've used them for quite a few years. There's a couple of tweaks on this most recent one, but the first performance measure on is the number of recreation program attendance. And you can see that our goal was 325,000, but the baseline number was actually 269,972. So that number is actually increased in 2025. We didn't quite meet our goal, but we're hoping for a little more of a rebound, and maybe we'll see that this year in 2026. So the next performance measure is the number of recreation swims, number of people in that swim. And so you'll see that that number is down. And so this is actually down from the goal and the baseline. And so one of the things that we're seeing less of are people at recreation swims. And so people are doing most of the other programs in the pool, but recreation swims just doesn't have the same draw always. We used to, at times pre-pandemic, would max those out at 200 kids. And so now we're seeing on the big ones more like 120. So much more manageable, but we're not getting quite the volume. And the other contributing factor to that too is we have reduced the number of recreation swims, and a little of that reasoning is as we've added back in the pool rentals and the room rentals as revenue sources, those have kind of taken away a little bit of those rec swim times. And so there's a little bit of addition here, but subtraction there to get to that point. So the next performance measure is swim instruction registrants. And so that goal was 1,600, but the actual number, the baseline number was 1,470. And so we have increased the number of kids in swim instruction. So those are increasing pretty steadily. And really it's trying to add more swim instructors and fit them as many as we can into the pool space we can in an efficient manner, make sure that we're maxing out our ratios. So the next one on the list is the number of scholarships awarded. And so this baseline number was from the ARPA funding that we received when we expanded the scholarships. So that was a much higher amount, and we expected it to decrease, which is what we projected in the goal, but it actually was even lower, the number of received scholarships. I think for the most part, we see the scholarship program requested to the max. So people are applying for the scholarship funds. They're not always utilizing them. So they get awarded and then they just forget about using them or don't follow through on that. So I think that'll be something that we try to continue to focus on and try to market the program a little bit again and get it out in front of people, because we want to see those scholarship dollars expended. We want people in the programs. And just a reminder, so that scholarship fund is city funding, that is general fund funding for that scholarship program. It's not a grant program. We also do have the other scholarship, Michelle Ringler Scholarship Fund, that is donation based. So the next one is the number of licensed childcare attendees. And surprisingly, that number is down on this list. And so that actually surprised me because we added a childcare class this school year. And so really trying to dig into that to understand our revenues are way up. And part of that is because we also increased prices. So there's a little bit of that, but I think there might have been some shuffling on ratios and trying to fit kids into the right size classrooms and maximizing the use of the space. Some of the spaces we were using before weren't quite the best for those purposes that we're trying to right size. So I think you'll see those numbers increase a little bit in this 2026 year. The number of city-sponsored community events has also increased from our baseline as well as our goal. So that's really partially, I would say, due to partnering with other agencies and organizations and trying to maximize, not only our time and resources, but also their interest and time in our city, and trying to bring in new programming and listen to the community about what they would like to do. And so those things seem to have been a success so far. And despite what the Polko survey showed, that people thought that we had less community events, I think based on maybe that was Tour de Terrace, kind of a reflection of that from a couple years ago. But we're going to continue to focus on that and provide quality events. So next one, I think, is community engagement, but questions?
Questions, comments, feedback? All right. Back, you're free to go. Thank you, sir.
So next one is human resources, and I will be presenting this part. So you can see the number of performance measures we have here. Was that 6? 7. And going through those numbers, the first one, employees see themselves working at the city a year from now, and this is data collected through the annual employee pulse survey. In 2024, the number was 3.9, and in 2025 it's 4.4, and that's a positive improvement. We want to see this number remain stable or increase. The second is maintaining positive employee morale. This one is showing red, but the data is collected through the annual employee survey. Last year it was 4.2, and this year it's 4.16. So, I'm sorry, in 2024 it was 4.2. 2025, 4.16, that's stable. Very, very slight decrease. The number of compensable work-related injuries, we want to make sure we have less than 13, and the data here, 2024 we had 15, and in 2025 we had 7. This is significantly impacts our employers' workers' compensation premiums and our claim-free status. For the turnover rate for benefited employees, the reason why we use benefited here is because at the pavilion for a lot of part-time positions during summer break, during different times of the year, there's a lot of rotating, revolving door going back and forth. So for benefited employees, in 2024, we had 16.85% in turnover, and in 2025, it's 8.75%. It's a healthy number. We're happy about that. The average for municipal government is between 9 and 12%, so we're doing well there. For maintaining employee training programs to mitigate risk, so training programs include safety, such as wildfire smoke, and anti-discrimination training and anti-harassment training. Goal was 15 trainings. In 2024, we had 14. 2025, we had 10. We did not meet our goal for this particular element due to budget considerations. So we're trying to get the most bang for the buck when we bring trainers in to mitigate that risk. The average number of days to recruit new full-time staff, we had a goal of 80 calendar days, just short of 3 months. And days to fill is calculated from the date the role is posted and the date the formal offer was signed by the candidate. In 2025, we had an average of 47.16 days. In 2024, that was 83 days. And 47.16, very healthy number. The average Ranges, depends on the position type, but in the public sector, it ranges from 76 to 130 days. So we are well above average in that area. And the percent of performance reviews completed on time, the goal is always 100. This year we are at 93%, and we did not have any previous data for this element. I think that 93% is a very healthy number, even though we don't have solid historical data. When Lauren started, there were some staff members who hadn't had an evaluation in years. So we've got that on the right track. And happy to answer questions.
Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager. Just a quick, I was going to say, numbers look great. I think trending really positively, and appreciate, I think, give credit to our HR manager for, I'm sure, a lot of the work that's been done since she joined the team. But I did have a question just around the training piece, given that, we had decided that 12 was a good number, and recognize there are budgetary constraints, and absolutely, appreciate staff looking for ways to continue to keep that in mind. But I guess, are we looking at different ways maybe to get to that number, maybe without, a cost involved, or at least with a lower cost involved?
Yeah, that we are. So our insurer, WCIA, offers many trainings at no cost. Unfortunately, those are usually webinars, which people, take, they're on demand, basically. And those kind of trainings, I do think that they're valuable. I don't think that they impart the information as, it's difficult to pay attention to a 3-hour webinar is basically what I'm saying. But we want to make sure that we are mitigating that risk in the most cost-effective way possible. And finding ways to do that with WCIA and with other organizations is something that we're focused on.
Okay, no, appreciate that very much. I'm all about a group watch session for what it's worth. I think that and like a discussion group can sometimes be helpful with some of those webinars. So, but appreciate all of the work. Thank you.
Others, questions, comments, feedback? All right, keep moving forward then.
No, this is her first day back from vacation. We're not going to make her do that.
It's a good report card, though, so I would do it.
So we had several goals here. I'll go through them fairly quickly because most of them are at 100%, so they could not increase or decrease. She brought me a giant finished chocolate bar, so I'm being very nice to her today. So providing records management training to staff in person and recorded. Our goal was for 1 a year. We actually had 2 in 2025. Posting available meeting materials the Friday before the meeting, so roughly a week before your meeting, 100%. Council meeting agendas and minutes online within legal time frame, also 100%. Post the approved ordinances and publish those in our paper of record, the Everett Herald, within the legal time frame, 100%. And special meeting notices and publication in the Everett Herald within the legal time frame, 100%. And responding to public records requests, which is incredibly important to me, and everybody knows it. Because, and I think I've mentioned this to all council members before, there is no insurance for failure to comply. So we would pay out of that for our general fund, so it's incredibly important to stay on top of. Jennifer and Rebecca do a great job at that, and we've met that goal at 100%. So happy to answer any questions for Jennifer.
Excellent. Questions, comments, feedback? Yeah, let that be noted. Woo.
I don't know if we can add anything.
Yeah, actually, I will end with mine, which is tied on as a rider to the woo, which is it's unfortunate you can't really quantify improved the agenda, including just today's, that now the public written comments are in the agenda, because before you'd have to cross-reference in the meeting because you wanted to know, well, what did they say? Maybe it was important not to read it tomorrow, but to read it tonight. So the fact that that's now available, I will just say I could probably, if I really sat down, come up with 5 changes that have happened that have all been in the right direction. And there's nothing mentioned about all that, and it should be, but it's just, how do you quantify that? There's only 7 of us, but I think I'm speaking for all 7 to say we really have noticed and appreciate how much more useful the electronic versions of this, and still having the written one when they get here helps too. So that would be my only comments, and from that, we'll move forward.
All right. Carolyn Hope, Deputy City Manager, sitting in for Sergey Salmonin, our Director of Finance, who's on vacation. So in finance, we started out with a performance measure about maintaining our city general obligation bond rating of AA. As you know, last year we lost our bond rating because we had not filed our annual comprehensive financial reports and had our audits completed on time. So we are working to get that back, because the good news is we have now completed all our financial reports on time and are caught up on our audits, and we have had clean audits with no findings. So that is really, really great news, and we want to commend Sergey and the finance team for their really hard work to get that done in about a year. So the next one is reducing the number of accounts with our outstanding payments for utility bills. So we had previously over about 206 accounts that were outstanding. We've gotten that down to 115, and as you know, we're making concerted steps moving forward in how to recover those funds. And number of passports issued, our goal was 1,500. We're a lot lower than that, 691, and that's partly because we've been really short on staff. We've had a number of vacancies over the past year, and we've had to reduce the passport office hours during that time. The good news is we're back up and running full-time on passports, and so we hope to see those numbers rise again.
I believe that brings us to question, comments, or feedback. Councilmember Matsumoto Wright.
Yeah, I have a comment on the bond rating and the reason why, looking at that from an outsider, thinking, wow, you know, we didn't get our reports done on time. But how many years behind were we that she had to catch up for us?
About 3. Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of work for her to do to get to this point, and I'm really appreciative of all of that. So even though it doesn't look good on this report, it really is good. I want the public to know that.
Well said. Councilmember Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I would also imagine that the number of passports are down because it's a reflection of our current economy. I think a lot of folks just are not able to afford travel. So maybe partially, decreased hours, but I think a lot of it's just how people are doing financially as well.
Appreciate all those comments. Any other questions, comments, or feedback? Okay, we'll end with mine, and I'll actually pick up the passport because somebody said something to me the other day. They said they went down to the city and they had this thing happen, and the way they said it, I thought they were talking about Seattle. I said, why didn't you come to ours? He said, I did. Which is just to say it's got its own entity. It didn't sound like they were coming here the way they talked about this operation, when I know it's a small facet of what we do. They made it sound like it was something huge, which is just to say that 691 are very, very appreciate having that resource right here at Mountlake Terrace. And then the follow-up in echo Councilmember Matsumoto Wright's point about how this might look from the outside. Well, as one who has gone to all of the audit exit interviews, it's unfortunate you don't have a measure here that shows how much the auditors appreciate us. Literally the last one that we were at, I thought they were going out to coffee afterwards, how friendly it was, which if you think about any time going for an audit, think of personal, let alone at a city level, that's going to be contentious one way or the other, but the relationship that's there is spoken freely in the meeting, but also reflective of the outcome. So in addition to getting caught up in those 3 years, did it in such a way that these folks look forward to us talking the next time and not in some gonna get you kind of way, which I just think it's unfortunate. Again, we don't have a way to measure that stuff, but it is felt and recognized. And again, as one who's been in all these meetings, I can sit on the outside and tell you it's a wonderful working relationship between the state auditors and our team here. So thank you to our team. And of course, Sergey is leading that, but it's a whole bunch of folks, not really, it's a handful of folks behind that doing that work. So appreciate all of you. Unless there's other comments, questions, or feedback, we'll keep moving forward. All right, we'll move on to IT.
Okay, thank you. I will present the IT performance measures here. You can see 7 different performance measures, and we'll talk about each of those quickly. The percent of IT capital projects completed annually, of course, we want that at 100%. You can see there that it's 60%, but nearly all of the remaining capital projects will be completed by the end of this year. So that number will go up. System uptime at 99%, and we met that goal. The number of supported hardware devices, it varies. As people join the city team here or leave in different positions, we exceeded that goal. It trends up, actually, for 880 devices. The number of business software applications, that's also trending up at 95. We did a lot of work with looking at our cost savings earlier in the year with the financial task force, so a lot of those numbers of software subscriptions and things like that are changing, but is still trending upward. Number of supported network users, it's 170, so quite a few different network users. And then the percent of employees that pass cybersecurity phishing tests, 97%. And I won't point out anybody that failed. But overall, things are in IT are going very well, and happy to answer any questions about that.
Questions, comments, feedback? Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Question, City Manager, that I don't know if you know offhand, but so we do training, sorry, I was going to say training for IT around cybersecurity. Is that included in our training numbers, or do we not include?
It's not. So we do the first training is about an hour for phishing tests. Yeah. And then every year you have to do another, and the follow-on's only about 15 minutes. So those numbers aren't in. I can include them because then the number would go from orange to green on the trainings.
I mean, it's a training, but I guess I'd be curious. I don't remember why we picked what we did, but I think this is great to know how many folks are passing, but I'd be curious, how many folks are completing training as well. And I don't. Yeah.
So one of the things we have to have for our insurer, again, because we do have cyber like phishing. You hear it all the time where cities get all their data locked down.
100%.
Something I live in constant terror about. 100%. So we make sure that we invest in that cybersecurity training. When that training goes out for all the employees, I give it about a month, and then I ask Gary for a list of who hasn't completed it. And then I go talk to each one of those people individually and say, you need to prioritize this. So I know everybody, and I'll just say here, council members all have IT-supported devices, and I have reminded you all how important it is to sit through that 15-minute training.
Yes.
So, that's very important to me because that would be one of the worst things that could happen. So staying on top of that's very important.
Thank you.
So we have Councilmember Matsumoto right. I just want to say something quickly with that, which is to say, if folks are not aware, there's a new, I'm going to presume it's a virus. It says confidential document ready. It's hitting all the Gmails, so I want to give our team credit for keeping it out of our systems, or it's going right to quarantine, because this one is sitting here, and if it's not for the fact that I know there's no way this person knows how to send a confidential document, you might not even think about it. You know what I mean? So it's like they're even getting more clever. It's like no mistakes in this at all. It's less words, and now it's just a curiosity thing, which, sorry, if you're in a hurry, you might not be paying attention even though you passed the training. So in the spirit of, let's also give credit for the attacks we haven't had, because they are stopping them before they're coming in, because they are flooding Gmail as we speak. Councilmember Matsumoto, right?
Yes, and then in the training, it said that if you see something, don't delete it, send it to IT, and then they can take care of it, give information to everybody if possible. And so that's what I've been doing, and then I delete it. But they're getting very sophisticated. But if I have to press anything, if I have to press any link at all, I don't. I just ask IT if that's okay. So.
Well said. And to that point, and how they get it much better, they are not doing the mistakes anymore, which used to be the telltale sign. And now those literally, there was no mistake in here, so that wouldn't have met the criteria to raise the flag. Although I will say this training does address that. So kudos to No Before You Go, or whatever their full name is, to update that, to keep that interesting, because we do have to do it once a year, and 15 minutes is a long time if I already saw it 15 minutes ago last year. So that said, it is new information, and sadly, it is getting way more easy to make a mistake.
Yep.
So, so for what that's worth, appreciate all the comments here. Any other comments, questions, or feedback on the IT? Otherwise, again, we'll keep moving forward. And I think it's ironic that my computer keeps telling me I need to restart, and you were talking about IT, and I'm like, and then there's people like me who don't remember to restart the thing. So I will do that afterwards, I all but promise. Code compliance.
Okay, so code compliance is also in community development, so I get to talk about this one too. So for a number of open code violation cases, that figure 193 is, it should be 8%. So that's an 8% increase over 2024. For percent of code violation cases resolved overall, it was an increase of 90%, increase over the year previous, or sorry, an increase of our goal. For percent of code violations resolved voluntarily, it's 100%, and that's 100% of those that were closed in 2025. So that means that the city did not have to do any abatements. For a number of code compliance educational opportunities provided, our goal was for 4 per year, and our code compliance officer did 7. And so out of curiosity, I asked what they were. We had kind of the standard MLT Academy. We had a few newsletter articles, presentations at council and planning commission, and she was also featured on the local news for the scamming that was going on. So that was the 7. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions, comments, feedback? All right, you should run while you can.
I will. Thank you. And now I get to hand it over to the police chief.
All right. Who's been waiting patiently? Thank you, sir.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Pete Cobb, the Police Chief. I have 4 performance measures to discuss with you today. The first one, obviously, is attaining 100% of the officers maintaining their annual Criminal Justice Training Commission training mandates. In addition to the 24 hours of varied training officers are required, they also have to they're also required through accreditation, the standards of completing additional training in high incidence, low frequency situations such as constitutional considerations, use of force, firearms, pursuit training. We meet that 100% of the time, and that's very important to us for 2 reasons. Number one, training is our insurance policy against bad deeds and bad outcomes, and also it's required to maintain our WASPC accreditation, which is important to all of us. And we've been accredited for over 20 years here. The second one, percentage of the time that police staff are provided real-time updates on critical incidents within 2 hours or during the conclusion of the incident. The 2 commanders and I rotate for command duty officer responsibilities. This is my week. I've been woken up in the middle of the night twice already this week. That's within the 2 hours, but sometimes situations, as occurred this week with the rounds fired on 56, require some advice on our part right away. So getting woke up in the middle of the night is part of the job, and we're happy to do it. Average response times under 5 minutes are level 1 in progress calls, which is people or property in danger of harms. The geography really lends itself to that. We're 4 square miles, but it doesn't hurt also that we have 2 other cities butted against us. So if we're busy or too far out of the position, we have a really good working relationship with the other cities to help us in mutual aid as we do them. So that's really not a difficult level to meet, but it's very important to us. And the percentage of community members that rate the city as a safe place, obviously that's going up. 84% people that we have good relationships with that think we're doing a good job is flattering, to say the least. So be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions, comments, feedback? Oh, Councilmember Sonmore.
I'll just make a comment. Going under the 5-minute level response time is huge. Recently in the Portland area, they just gave a report because of the reduced budget they had. They were at a SWAT response but they also had an incoming call for a report of an abduction or attempted abduction of, I think it was a 7-year-old, and it was a 40-minute response time for the attempted kidnapping assault because of the reduction of police. And I think that's why it's imperative to have such reduced times for a response for the police. And so thank you for keeping that up. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's obviously, none of us can accept that. That in the case of Portland and Seattle, it's actually a staffing issue a lot of the time, but it's not a situation you want to find yourself in, I agree.
Appreciate the comments. Question, comments, feedback? No? Okay. Actually, I'd end with mine then. Always nice to see, and I presume that's a poll call number as well, the 84%. So I would just ask in the spirit, we have a new dynamic that's perhaps before those numbers are accounted for in the form of light rail. Are you sensing any concerns? And I'll just keep it at the light rail station, but there's a lot more density down there with Terrace Station as well.
Yeah,
so just, are we seeing more activity that we should be aware of, or any concerns?
Yes, there's been additional activity, but I have to compliment the security people down there. They've done a really good job, and they really exceeded my expectations when they said they were going to have their own security people there. I was somewhat hesitant about the effectiveness of that. I thought one of two things would happen. They would be handling things they shouldn't be, or they would call us about everything. And neither one of those things has occurred. So they're doing actually a very good job of triaging things before they call us, and also not trying to handle things that really outside of the scope of their responsibility. So yeah, it's been whenever you increase the density in an area, you're going to have more problems. That's just a fact of life. But that's been mitigated some bit by the effectiveness of security people. Been happy with it.
Thank you. I didn't know what your answer was going to be, but that one makes me smile. So that prompts another question in the spirit of people bringing about police responses that you didn't break that rule. You wouldn't need to do that. We don't have a punch through on Veterans Park yet to 236. That doesn't seem to be stopping people. I did notice there was a sign that I swear wasn't there in the morning, is there now, that says only authorized personnel up these stairs. But I still watch people look at the sign and go right on up the stairs, and I know they're not going to get it on a bus on that loop. So I don't know how to ask this other than say what's the police activity they should expect for trespassing? Because that is effectively what they're doing, I think, legally speaking.
Well, that's not an area we proactively patrol for obvious reasons, but we certainly go down there and make a response if somebody calls us. But I'm not aware of the problem, but thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, well, hopefully it doesn't turn into a problem. But again, in the spirit of, then they'll have you talk to them and they're going to take it out on you, not that you shouldn't be here. Literally, it's telling you it's private property and all this. And I know I'm not the only council member who keeps hearing how we don't come out to 236, but people should not be taking the law into their own hands.
Agreed.
Because it's not very safe over there. And literally, you've got to cross a bus line that they're not looking for people coming off the left, because there shouldn't be people on the left there, let alone in the nighttime, which is where this was happening. So this, again, personal question, but figured I'd ask if you didn't mind answering. So that said, unless there's other questions, comments, or feedback, thank you for your patience with us. We'll go to property management.
Well, good evening again, and we are on slide 20, property management, and still the same goal that was just discussed, responsible governance to ensure desired levels of service. And so for property management, we have 4 goals, and let me just preface it first with that we hope to get much more improved, and that our goals will actually be more accurate and more accurately tracked. The performance measures will be, with the addition of new asset management software. And so I think the Public Works Director is probably going to say something similar in a minute, but really the systems we're using to track some of these things are emails or tally boards, like things that just aren't very efficient or effective to do these things. But we have seen trends, especially related to property management, and sometimes for different reasons. So the first one is percent of maintenance requests responded to within 2 workdays, and you could see that that is red, so it's 60%. The goal was 70%, and so was the baseline number. And so I think there's a couple of factors involved here. I would say that there is an increase in requests overall in the city. I'm on those email chains, so I see them come in pretty frequently. It could be from the smallest issue to the largest. And the other piece of that is there are some really large issues that have came up, especially in 2025, that have that have taken quite a bit of time and resources from our staff. And so when that happens, it kind of just everybody all hands on deck to get that thing back online if it's a life safety system. So smaller requests do not get responded to in time. So that can be some of that that I'm estimating here. But as I mentioned, if we get software, we'll be able to kind of streamline that performance measure a little better explanation-wise. The maintenance requests per year, number of maintenance requests per year were escalated. And so the goal was, our goal of maintenance requests is all relative, but it was 150 and the baseline was about 150, but we actually have seen last year about double that number of requests. And so some of that is a good story. I know it's green, that you wouldn't really think that's like a good thing, that we don't want maintenance requests to increase, but the positive spin on that is that more people are feeling, you know, like they can report those requests, that they're going to get handled, and that also we're pointing them in the right direction so we're able to report that correctly, because there's many times where staff will get called upon just in passing, and so we can't track that data. And so being able to email that into the system where 4 of us receive it at the same time, it's a more efficient way for us, not as efficient as asset management will be, but this will I think help, and it's just reflective of that. Number of recreation pavilion pool closure days due to maintenance. If you remember last year, the pool was closed for a liner repair. And so that was around 8 weeks that we were closed. And so that is why that number is so large. And we normally shoot for a much smaller number, more like a week. But so that was that way that number was exceeded quite a bit. The maintenance related callbacks, and this is due to numerous facilities, and we're seeing something similar this year, related to HVAC failures, continuous heating or cooling, sometimes both, oddly enough. But a lot of that is maintenance failures where they get called back after hours or in the middle of the night at times. And so we do have facilities, especially one facility that's a 24-hour facility that we can't ignore if they're having issues. We do need to come in and try to resolve those issues so police can operate. And so they've been troopers and through a lot of the issues we had before we replaced the system, and we have some ongoing issues we're trying to resolve still down there with the new heating and cooling systems. But that is one of the issues while you'll see that increased callbacks, and there are some expenses related to that too. So we are working on those issues moving forward. Are there any questions?
Questions, comments, feedback? Seeing none, I'll just ask mine, and really it's to correlate. I peeked, so I knew you had this pavilion pulled out, but I was going to recommend you keep it on that slide, but also include it on your recreation slide if my question maps, which is going back to your recreation slide, under the number of recreation swim attendance, from goal was 65, but we made just shy of 47. I presume those correlate to because some of those days were pool closures, right? And
that would have had a big impact.
Yeah,
correct.
so I don't know if we can map that over time, which will also, I think, help us in the bigger scheme of it all. As we start talking about what's the next step with the pavilion, you can literally show how many times that number has grown per year, if you will. But also, again, going back to your recreation side to show that these aren't unrelated. Right, because the pool is closed, that's going to be a whole loss of a day. That could be 500 folks right there. I don't know if it's that high, but point remains. And so in that regard, just saying that would be my recommendation, but also thank you for tracking it, because it's a real problem and it's getting worse, as we can see by the numbers. All right, so not a question, I guess it was a comment. So that said, any questions, comments, or feedback? Oh, mine was feedback, I guess. All right. Thank you, sir. We will now move to our next one, which is recreation and parks.
Yes. So that's a great point about recreation, and we're in responsible governance, but we are still with recreation on the first item here. But yeah, great point that I did not make. That number is down, probably very realistically because we were closed for 8 weeks and nobody could actually utilize the pool. So. But the first element here for recreation and parks, these are mostly going to be parks related, but the first one falls into responsible governance based on our cost recovery model. And so cost recovery for recreation in 2025 was up. And so it was up from our baseline as well as our goal. Our baseline was 62%, so we increased that to 78%. But so we exceeded our goal, which is great news. And so that cost recovery is a combination of increased revenues and also holding expenses enough to where we are able to kind of exceed that difference. quite a bit more than previously. So that's great news. And so specifically those fee increases had a big role to play in that to continue to help us increase our cost recovery. But specifically the revenue project codes that we call them would be like pool instruction, kids crew, preschool camps, dance, and rentals all far exceeded their budgeted goals. So great to see that in 2025. So, and then the next category is percent of responses to reported issues within 2 workdays. And so that is the same as our goal, but it is higher than our baseline. So our baseline was actually 75%. So that has increased a little bit. And, you know, I think part of that is, you know, continuing our effort with seasonals. We've been able to hire some seasonals. We have 2 right now, and they really do help a ton. It's just that focused effort during the growing season for us to stay on top of things. And so they really do help a lot with any of the issues that get reported. And the next one, especially when we talk about vandalism, responding to that vandalism and getting it taken care of quickly. So that next one, as I mentioned, is number of vandalism issues reported, and that number is down. So the baseline was 80, and we had a goal thinking it was going to continue to increase, but it did not. It went down a little bit. And so that's reported, and that's, you know, there's a little bit of plus minus room in that where we may not identify something or somebody in the public may not point it out to us, but it's encouraging to see that vandalism did go down slightly in 2025, according to this data. The number of playground inspections performed is the final metric, and so we've actually increased that number. So it's a great sign also that park staff are being very proactive, and there are reasons why we've had to do that also, because we've had some playgrounds that have been kind of deteriorating, so we've had to make sure we're increasing those inspections, and we've also removed a couple of playgrounds in 2025 and 2026. So we will stay on that path and continue to make sure that we're evaluating those and keeping the community safe. Any questions?
Questions, comments, feedback? Councilmember Sonmore.
I have 2 questions. What is the amount of the 22% of the cost recovery?
What is the amount, the dollar amount? I do not have that number in front of me right now.
Do we have that? Is it not projected in our budget
I can get
book?
that for you, though. Yeah.
But what was projected in the budget?
I do not have that either. I only have the percentages related to cost recovery in front of me.
Okay, and then my other question was vandalism. So vandalism can be maybe a small tag versus breaking windows. So 75 reports. So you said it's down, but what is the amount of damage that was done? And what did it cost the city for that 75 reports of vandalism? Because I know they've broken into buildings and we've had a fire, and so we've had quite a bit of damage that's cost the city. Do we have an amount of what that amount is?
I do not have that in front of me. I only have the performance measure numbers. I can tell you that most of these issues would be, you know, vandalism as far as like graffiti, where we're able just to paint over it. So it'd be staff time, a little bit of paint. The most extensive vandalism that happens, beyond those outliers that you mentioned, a couple of those big ones, is the tunnel. We do receive a lot of graffiti down there, and we're constantly painting that tunnel. So there is some cost related to that time, and then also the paint cost. You know, I think the tunnel's getting smaller and smaller every year, the amount of paint that's being put on it, but it's, staff are being very proactive. The more we keep it painted, I think it discourages that. So police have been great partners in monitoring.
I remember we've gone down there and painted a few times. And then there's also playground equipment vandalism. We're praying that the new equipment we're putting in doesn't get vandalized or torched. Do we have a cost to the amount of equipment that's been vandalized? Because I know they're expensive. That new playground equipment is, what was it, $20,000 or $30,000? And I think sometimes people don't realize, they think it's funny or to set something on fire, or kids are playing around, but there's a cost to all this vandalism, especially tagging. And I was wondering, what is, if we catch a tagger, what are they charged with?
I think that there have been a few. I mean, they're not always easily caught also if it's done in the middle of the night, but there have been a few caught for various, you know, violations. And I don't know the exact things they were charged with. There's many, what's that? Malicious mischief, typically. But there have been quite a few where we've worked with the parents and police as well to work out a process where they would replace that piece. that happened recently where they were able to, they had to pay for that. And also there's times where they've had to assist in the repair of different elements. And so outside of the courthouse. And so those are things that we've tried to do at times, but as far as the cost related to all those, it's a very good question. And that's something I think the asset management software could really, really help us track. It's not something I have in front of us, but each one of those play pieces could be a few $1,000s. And so sometimes we can fix them, and we can even like melt the plastic at times to keep it from some of the things that are on there away from people being able to see, but they do their best to try to do that. And so luckily that we have a pretty skilled team that's able to handle those issues, but you're right, there are some things that are really expensive that we have to deal with.
I think it was 2 teenage boys or something. I remember a report, I think it was in RPAC, but I appreciate that you did take the time to work with the parents. So hopefully a lesson was learned, and that stays with them, because it is, people think it's kind of funny when something happens to a city equipment, or they ruin a car, or they ruin a police car, but they have to remember they're actually paying for it. And so those dollars add up quite high and quite frequently, and especially with budgets being that the way they are, it's something that, it would be nice if we didn't have to spend money on those costs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well said. Any other questions, comments, or feedback? Seeing none, we'll end with mine. I'm going to wedge this in because it overlaps with you, but also this building, and I've been telling the team here, I got to get you guys acknowledged. This council made a decision to stop contracting out with the janitorial services, and I think that had some overlap with the parks as well. That was feedback we were getting, cleanliness just in general. I just wanted to hear, not one of our measures, but should be, whether or not that's been a good investment on our part, meaning that you're not hearing those complaints come in, because those numbers would go much higher, if I remember correctly. So just give you a chance to speak, but really I'm also crediting the team that I know at this site in particular, but around our city as well.
Yes, I mean, I'll be telling you my personal opinion, but from what I've heard also and gathered from staff that experienced the contract model versus the employee model, it is night and day. So our employees act with so much care in everything they do and are really dedicated. Brandon and Letitia do a fabulous job in covering all the buildings with 2 people. It really is very tough work, and especially when you're at the Recreation Pavilion in the summer. There's just a ton of stuff to clean over there. So really, I think that it's night and day difference, to be honest with you. And I think that it's worth every penny of the investment and having employees do it as opposed to the contractors.
I appreciate hearing that. That was my personal bias as well, which I will now use this instead of new business to say, I do think it's in our interest to find some way to acknowledge that work that they are doing, because we took a risk. And, that was one way in which to spend that money, but we could have gone in other directions. And I think it is proving to be the right direction based upon nobody's talking about it anymore. And that is proof positive it was money well spent, because we were hearing a lot of that. Looks like Councilmember Sonmore was going to add something.
Oh, I was just going to, I wholeheartedly agree with you. One of our council members who isn't here tonight reported, I don't know, it was damage done in the men's bathroom at our last event. And I didn't even think about what the janitors had to go through. And I just commend them for having to be able to deal with stuff like that. And so maybe that's one thing that we look at when we open the public restrooms. And I don't know how you police that or how you change that, but they have to do extra duty when we're opening up our facility. And sometimes people don't respect the facility, just like vandalism. And that was kind of an act of vandalism that happened in there. So respect to our janitors.
Perfect. Appreciate the comments. Any other questions, comments, or feedback? All right. Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Looks like we're moving to communications and community engagement. A little ironic that that's coming in last, but that's okay. It's not last, technically.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Sienna Spencer-Markles, the Communications and Community Engagement Manager for the city. As you know, one of our 4 strategic goals is fostering an informed and engaged community. When we talk about comms, we're referring to all the proactive content and communications that we develop and distribute to the public and to the media. Comms encompasses traditional public relations like press releases, story pitching, digital marketing campaigns to help spread awareness, and content creation that helps inform and tell our stories. And as you know, when we talk about engagement, that covers our town halls, public forums, open houses, community surveys, resident polls, in-person outreach where we share information, answer questions, and ask for feedback from our residents. To that end, here are 5 performance measures that we identified last year to help measure our success in the areas of communications and engagement. Number 1 was a result of our POLCO community survey, which was conducted earlier this year. One of the questions on the survey asked a cross-section of residents to rate our city when it comes to being open and transparent to the public. We put our goal as 70%, we almost made it, coming in at 63%. And a side note is that we conduct that POLCO survey biannually since 2022. So we have 2022, 2024, and now 2026. And they all come in around the mid-60s. And that means that 7 in 10 respondents gave excellent or good ratings to the accessibility of city communications and the city's ability to provide the public with opportunities to engage and get involved. The second metric was to drive an increase in the percentage of followers who engage with us on our social media platforms. We surpassed our goal of a 27% increase with a 43% increase. For a small city, we have big engagement. Number 3 refers to the number of community engagement opportunities we offer, whether virtual, digital, in person. We were not previously tracking this measurement prior to last year, so now we have a baseline of 42. And just a side note that number will vary from year to year based on the number of projects that require engagement. The 4th metric speaks to our proactive goals to reach residents who speak a primary language other than English. Translating community engagement materials is important, and it's a priority for us. And it does take time, effort, and a budget to execute properly. We're just shy of our goal of 15%, coming in at 12. But now that we have our community engagement plan and our DEI strategic plan, I believe we're well positioned to hit our goal next year with more translated materials. And number 5 is finally a media relations stat, which measures the direct results of press coverage based on our proactive outreach in the form of press releases and story pitches. We aimed for 50 articles, and we have surpassed that with 75 plus. Happy to answer any questions.
I see Councilmember Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have more of a comment and kudos for Sienna. I think as our city has new residents, and I think as it changes and becomes actually a bit younger on average, I think reaching people online is so important as far as engaging voters, engaging residents. And I think this will be the key to success as Mountlake Terrace evolves. And it helps people learn that their city government is accessible, that we're here, even having meetings on Zoom. I think it goes really far in terms of engaging our constituents and residents. So thank you, Sienna, for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or feedback? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to Public Works.
Hello, Mayor and Council.
And I'm just going to say it. Apparently, we're saving the best for last.
Oh, I don't know about that. I am your Public Works Directors, and yes, we'll be your last. And I have 2 slides covering 2 goals. We'll start with responsible government first. We did have 3 water breaks in 2025, but due to our fabulous crews, none of them lasted over 12 service hours. And the reason we don't have the breaks is we really don't have control over that, because unlike stormwater and sewer, we can inspect the pipes. Here we cannot. So that's why we have this metric. As Jeff mentioned, we are anxiously awaiting our new software system for asset management, and we'll begin tracking our work requests because they come in so many different ways. But I can tell you, like Jeff was talking, I do my requests that I get from email, phones, knocks on my door. I sent 30 out to staff in 2025 via email, and all of them were responded to within 24 hours. So hopefully we're going to see the same when we enlarge this to all of the requests. We've been very consistent through the years on meeting our goal for 90% of our fleet being inspected. And again, we have 80 vehicles. We are a little low for our closed circuit television inspections because we're really focusing on wastewater. And what you'll be seeing in the budget is additional funding to get contract support for the stormwater system so we can get those numbers up. So we really just don't have the internal staffing to do both the stormwater and wastewater aggressively at this time. We didn't hit our goal of one traffic safety plan per year last year. However, we will almost for certainly be hitting it this year and the following years. John Merrick, of course, is very excited to get out into the public and do these. And with Main Street rocking along, I think we will have the time to do that. We did exceed our goal, and it is rising in a number of, we talked about this in another manner earlier today, the ADA compliant curb ramps. We had 13, and our goal was 10. And then we hit our modest goal of one traffic signal per year, and there's no reason to expect that we wouldn't hit that every year. Any questions on the responsible governance?
Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the update. I guess looking ahead a little, but since it's July, I guess in terms of the number of neighborhood traffic safety plans completed, have we completed one yet in 2026, or do we have one in the plans for 2026?
Yeah, John is, we are hopefully going to get it done this year. He hasn't done it yet, but we're working on, and there's other two plans, are the pedestrian and bicycle plan, and we're hoping to incorporate that segment into these neighborhood plans. So I am very confident we're going to see one done this year.
Great.
Given
Do we
the
know when
timing.
that's coming back to us, ballpark? Just curious.
What's that?
Do we know time frame wise, ballpark, maybe when that's coming to us for conversation?
Oh, good point. I'm going to say September or October.
Okay, yeah, just
And
because
I'll
obviously we've had
confirm
a lot
with John.
of interest, yeah, in that space. Thank you.
We'll
Other
get to that
questions?
before we begin budget discussions, because after that, that's what we'll be focused on.
Good point.
Other questions, comments, or feedback? Seeing none, we'll end with mine. I'm going to come back to you, but I'm going to start with Sienna's department. I don't know that this is a one-for-one, but the two water main breaks, I think, were community initiated, meaning that community members said, this looks odd, and said something, not just to themselves or to the air, which is to say you've created a culture where people think something happens if they do something online, and that's how I'll tie it back to you. The feedback from the community about your team's behavior in dealing with the problem is really the focus here, which is to say that stuff is why I always tease and say you're my favorite department, because nobody knows you exist until something's wrong and then they're yelling at you, right? And so I very much relate to that. That said, wanted to acknowledge that. What a wonderful both times set of dialogue community-wide. And this second time I took a risk and just wrote, hey, thanks for reaching out and saying something. And the amount of likes that got, I was expecting to get ripped. Where it's just like, well, what about this one time? But everybody really was just positive. And again, just giving that feedback about the actual people doing the work, not just these numbers, because these are very stressful moments in time is the part that doesn't come through, I think, in all of everybody's reports. None of this is fun. This all has to be done, though, but this one is done under real duress, I think, and that's not to diminish anybody else's real duress either. It's just having people yell at you, which I did have a minute while the music was playing, if anybody missed that. Aaron didn't miss that. But nonetheless, just acknowledging your team and the work that they're doing, that when they're doing that work, somehow people receive it pleasurably, if you will, and it's not a pleasurable moment. So that was just the feedback. And I know you have one more slide.
Okay, the first one here probably needs the most attention of all. We've been at 33% for a while for a diversion rate. And and Patrick, of course, and Laura were doing a good job. Waste Management's doing a good job in this. I was talking to Carolyn and Jeff today. This is an issue I encountered at both Redmond and Issaquah. And really, there's one solution that worked over there, and that is looking at additional education and outreach staff dedicated. Costs money, right? So this is something, Jeff and I just talked before. We're going to be considering this in the budget and, maybe seeing it, but again, it's the cost benefit for here. But nothing wrong with what we're doing. We are doing good education and outreach, but this is a tough nut to crack. Again, I've been there at other cities, and it takes a lot of nurture and care, because this is cultural change, behavioral change, to get those numbers higher. The amount of material moved from our dear street sweeper, a little low, but that's kind of good reasons. We didn't have a lot of ice events, so we didn't see a lot of salt and sand on the roads. And Tim Nye does these calculations, and we're pretty much assured that's why we saw a little bit less this year. 0 was a very hard number for sewer overflows. Now, that is from the Clean Water Act, so that is what they want, but hardly anybody can achieve that. So getting 1 is fairly amazing, because we can do our part, which, cleaning the lines, that's what the CCTV we're talking about, but electrical outages at the pump stations and other things. So this is really, I'm actually very proud to have 1 here. And so we are talking about numbers per annual. This is really hard to get 0, but if we can hit 1 or 2 or even 3 a year, very proud of our staff for doing that. Patrick and his team on NPDS, again, this is a great stagnant trend line of 0, meeting not having any violations. Also, again, with Patrick and his team accomplishing what is required. Now, this is a variable number depending on the number of businesses that qualify. Our goal is 20%, and we hit that. And finally, another big trend here, and this 137 is not just out of the hat, right? This is actually to get to our canopy goal by 2050. So you're going to see this goal every year, and we're on a trend line up. Large part, we did some collaboration with Sound Transit and Parks Department here. So that was one of the reasons the number is so high, but again, hopefully we'll keep on that trend. So that will wrap it up. I think any questions?
All right, questions, comments, feedback? All right, free to move about the country.
Thank you so much.
All right, I will wrap this section up just with a compliment to the city as a whole. I know I just particularly pointed out Public Works, but the reality is I think all 7 of us hear something about each of your departments on a given weekly basis, and it's always positive. So I'm happy my police chief is still here, because that is included in you, and usually that's not the case, as we know, when it comes to police. That's why I was asking, people are actually creating ways to interact with you negatively. What are we doing about that so you guys aren't left in a lurch? But I do want to acknowledge, especially under new leadership, Director Item, just the work that you all are doing over there. I can't imagine any of us wanting to do that if that was part of our job description. So that's somehow interesting to you is awesome. But that you have a team that you keep motivated doing it is also awesome. But again, all of you are just doing amazing work, and I'm glad that we had this opportunity. This is more digestible than the quarterly reports that you do, so I also hope that our residents take the time and just watch this portion of you all come through and talk about where you're hitting marks and where you'll hit them most likely the next time, which, is realism. So that said, just thank you all for a wonderful report, and what a wonderful way to almost go into our break, celebrating the wins, but we still got more to go. So please do.
Also, just wanted to mention, Carolyn has put together a dashboard for our performance measures online. We only have a couple of years of data, so we don't have an actual trend line yet. We can't make it super fancy yet, but the goals are there, our numbers are there. And as we gather more data, we'll be able to create that trend line, and you can see the improvement in each of these metrics over time.
Awesome. Please, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, thank you to all the city staff. I mean, I feel really, really good about our strategic plan and the performance indicators that help us to understand that we are making measurable progress on that plan each year. So yeah, kudos, I think, for all of the good work. I feel very proud of this report and very excited about the future. I did have one question. I think in terms of we developed a strategic plan, we've got these goals and measures that we're tracking, and obviously there is benefit to consistency in them from year to year so that we can utilize, love a good dashboard. So excited to be able to check that out. And also, I think sometimes goals change, or sometimes there are goals that perhaps we didn't include that maybe want to be included. I know we've gotten some feedback as we're having conversations about this process. Can you just talk a little bit about how we may continue to have conversations and iterate on these as we move forward?
Yeah, so during the council retreat and kind of strategic planning session each year, we talk about these goals, what needs to be adjusted. Strategic plans aren't necessarily static. They do change over time, but they should retain some of the same form because you're working towards something over time. The strategic plans that I think are most effective are ones that are roughly a 5-year period, because that gives us enough time to align the resources to actually accomplish the goals that council would like us to accomplish. But if there is a particular measure or one of the subsets under each one of the 4 strategic goals where it's like, oh, that's an opportunity, we need to go out and make that happen, we can adjust that. As far as the data itself that we can show, it depends on how much that question adjusts, if we can keep the same trend or not. I would think mostly, if we adjust a strategic goal or one of the subsets, it's going to be somewhat similar. That's not always the case, but we would address it at the time, depending on what that change looks like.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that answer. And yeah, I guess I will just name, we've had a lot of public comment lately, and specifically or written comment tonight around pedestrian safety and bicycle safety, and know that that is a concern for a lot of residents. And as we heard, there is active work being done in that space, but maybe that isn't necessarily reflected as part of these metrics. And so I do think a conversation around, is there a way to, and I know there was part of it with the individual neighborhood safety plan. Sorry, I clicked off of it. But yeah, I don't know if, clearly for some folks that didn't feel substantial enough. I don't know if it makes sense to think about that one a little bit differently, but I guess I would just love to make sure that we note that, so when we do come back to the conversation at our retreat, that we ensure that we touch on that.
Yeah, one of the great things about the Polco survey is we have the set of questions that is the national community survey. So we have a baseline from all around the country, similar sized communities, similar demographics, that kind of thing. The other piece of it, though, is we have, I think, between 4 and 6 questions that we can ask the community that are unique to us. So we can adjust that over time. It makes it difficult to provide a trend line for something like that, but at least we can get feedback on where we're going.
No, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Yeah, I was just going to say for performance review, we do have a lot of that data. We've been doing it for years and years and years. Currently, it may not be 1-to-1 anymore because we've changed some of the guidelines and goals, but we've always had those surveys and always had that feedback. So we used to have, I'll just take yours for social media. Virginia used to say how many she put out. So we've got data from years and years of performance measures like you were just asking about.
Perfect. Deputy City Manager.
Sorry, I just wanted to address Councilmember Murray's question. In our strategic plan, we had objectives and action items. The action items weren't necessarily performance measures, so I can go back and add some of those metrics for you in the future. But in the sustainability and climate resilience objective, we had a goal of continuing to design active transportation projects to increase alternatives for driving and connecting our neighbors and our neighborhoods. And one of the action items was to develop and implement a comprehensive citywide bicycle and pedestrian plan. So we have been talking about that with the engineering team recently about how to integrate that into our budget and resources for the next biennium. And the other related action item was seeking funding and prioritizing safe routes to school projects.
Thank you. I appreciate that reminder as well, that it is oftentimes hard when we have these very comprehensive plans to distill them down into a a single presentation, even a very comprehensive presentation. So no, I think I appreciate you reminding us that that is all bodies of work that is being done, even if it's not reflected in the performance metrics. Thank you.
Perfect. I believe we're ready to move forward. Or we're going to take... Oh, does anybody need a break? No, we're good. Yep. I appreciate the concern. So next we have the Countywide Growth Centers, and that is back with our CD Director, Brooke Item. Welcome back.
All right, thank you. So the purpose of this item is to provide an update on the county's project to review and recommend countywide growth centers for the countywide planning policies, or CPPs. Centers are an important piece of the regional growth strategy. They're areas of compact, mixed-use, pedestrian-oriented development. They can affect several elements of future planning, but one critical piece is transportation funding. So you can see here on this map that they're very integral with the station, the light rail and transit stations. There are different levels of centers identified by the Puget Sound Regional Council. There are regional growth centers at the very top, and those include the metro and urban growth centers. These are designated by the PSRC. Both have relatively high activity unit density requirements. They're large, and they serve a more regional role. Below that is the countywide growth centers, which are designated by the county, and they generally have an activity per unit density of 10 units per acre, but that can vary. And then at the bottom is local centers, and those are identified in local plans. These are generally a place of importance to a local jurisdiction, like a downtown area. So our town center is identified as a candidate countywide growth center in the countywide planning policies among 17 others. This means that it may be eligible, but it is not designated. So the Snohomish County Tomorrow's Planning Advisory Committee has put together a work group to review and verify the criteria for countywide centers and to ultimately make a recommendation for centers to add to the list by December of this year. Staff is on that working group and can continue to provide updates as they come. At this point, that's really all that we have to report, but I can continue giving information as we have it. The group has met once so far. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments, feedback? Councilmember Sonmore.
Curious. So on the current project list, you know, not all the Snohomish County cities are represented, like let's just say Lake Stevens. So they were, do you know if all the cities submitted something? No.
No. And I'm not sure if they were submitted by the cities either. So these were identified with some early eligibility criteria. So the Mountlake Terrace town center and light rail station area met their preliminary eligibility criteria, and places that are kind of off the corridor and maybe don't have that unit density are not included.
Do you see any unintended consequences from this?
At this point, I'm not entirely sure what unintended consequences there could be. It would affect our potential growth targets in the future, but it would also come with a significant amount of potential transportation funding. So that would be what's important.
Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate, again, I think opportunity to hear about things as they're being discussed. And I guess kind of to follow up on Councilmember Sonmore's question, I guess, could you speak to the intended consequences more? Because I think that's like, yeah, so what are, if we were to be designated as a county growth center, sounds like there's some potential benefits to that, or maybe some responsibility and some benefits. Can you just speak to that a little bit more, or do we know at this point?
Yeah, and we're really trying to still understand what that is. But the transportation funding is really the thing that we know for sure at this point. But it is consistency with the Growth Management Act is the big one. This is what the Growth Management Act intended, putting growth where it is supposed to go, where there is the adequate infrastructure and mobility and all of that important stuff, and keeping it out of the areas where it is not supposed to go. So that's really the main purpose of this kind of thing, and that's what I think the impetus behind it when PSRC added it to the regional growth strategy. The county has not determined how many countywide centers they're going to designate. So far there are 3 that are designated officially. They don't know how many more they're going to do. So,
Is this a new thing? Or like, have there been countywide, I know there's been regional growth centers, but have there been countywide growth centers until now?
It's been there. I think those 3 have been countywide centers, but they're expanding the list with the new comprehensive plan and the countywide planning policies.
Okay, and sorry, just want like, so can you, what is an example of a current one? Maybe I missed that. I guess I'm just, if I was curious to go learn more about what it might mean for us or what it's looked like.
So the 3 that are identified are Bothell Canyon Park,
Okay,
downtown Everett, and then Linwood around the Alderwood Boulevard.
okay, interesting. I will say, as somebody who worked in Canyon Park for a long time, I was gonna say, the opportunity for jobs closer to home is very potentially exciting. I don't know if that's part of that growth, but I will say that is, I'm interested to learn more. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Any other question, comments, feedback? Councilmember Matsumoto Wright.
So this is a good thing. We really want to be a part of this because then we get the funding. They have to help with the funding on all of the things that we have been working on. And I know from the very, very beginning, before we started any of the town center things, we were looking at our, well, we didn't have light rail. We were hoping to get light rail in our future. But when we were starting the town center, that concept, that wasn't really a concept, but it was talked about, is something that we really wanted to be a part of because with PSRC also, and with Snohomish County Tomorrow, that's where the funding comes from and the support. So we really do need to want to be a part of this if we're going to get help in building what we want to build here, because we're stuck. We're going to be building because we don't want the sprawl to happen elsewhere. So we have a light rail station, now we have to take the responsibility to do what we have to do.
Thank you, that's really well put. And PSRC is a major source of funding, so that is, for me, the most important part of this project and why I want to make sure that we're represented on that group.
Thank you.
Probably tell you, but remind them that they gave us an award for our downtown, and so you know. Okay.
Yeah, and when we had the first working group meeting, they presented a PowerPoint, and pictures of our town center were all over it. It was really interesting. They kept showing pictures of it. Yeah.
2012, 2013, something like that. 2011. 2011, 2012. Anyway, so it was a big deal.
Outstanding. Others, question, comments, feedback? All right, seeing none, thank you for your time and energy.
Thank you.
We will move to, I'm just going to say number 9 and let the city manager introduce it. or the deputy city manager, or our awesome parks director. One of you has to present. We'll figure it out. Go for it.
Hello. Carolyn Hope, Deputy City Manager, joined by Jeff Betts, Recreation and Parks Director. We're here tonight to talk to you about a joint resolution requesting Snohomish County to fund regional aquatics. And I think that you're aware, but we are just reviewing this item tonight as we didn't have a notice to vote tonight. So we will have a special meeting next week to vote on this measure. Just a little background. Back in early 2025, the council requested that staff start moving forward in looking at partnership opportunities to replace the recreation pavilion. I think Jeff has been providing presentations to council for a couple of years now, explaining that the costs have exponentially increased to the point that even if we built a local pool, it would cost more than what we're capable of funding, even through bond measures or levy measures. So we started that process in meeting with local cities, school districts, and neighboring agencies to evaluate what that partnership could look like. They've been successful conversations, and we are moving forward with a possible MOU and looking at a feasibility study, and those will be coming to you shortly with more information. But at the end of this month, on July 31st, our county council members have a grant process, and those grant applications are due on July 31st. And so there's an opportunity for both Edmonds and Mountlake Terrace to ask for funding to support this work. And so the resolution is really intended to show the county council members, both Strom Peterson and Jared Mead, that we are in partnership to work together on a regional aquatics facility. And that is something that the county is familiar with. And I'll let Jeff talk a little more about that.
Yeah, good evening. I think that the easy way to put this is that, as mentioned, we are really trying to push forward the idea that South Snohomish County is interested in an aquatics presence. And whether that includes one regional pools or multiple pools, we're trying to keep that option open. And so the ask on this end from Edmonds would be to do a study of what they need to do for Yost Pool and what they would need to do for maintenance and repair and what that would all include, and potentially utilize the rest of the funding that after they do that identification piece to repair the pool itself, Yost Pool. And so that is a separate piece through their council member. And I think each district gets $150,000 allocation is the way that it works for the county, theoretically. And so then our ask would be for the feasibility and pre-design and conceptual design of a potential regional aquatics facility. So that is the short of it and the idea behind it. And so I think the hope is that by unifying this, the resolution would help unify to the Snohomish County Council that South Snohomish County is really interested in the two cities, Edmonds and Mountlake Terrace, are really in partnership in moving forward aquatics programming.
Questions, comments, feedback, I believe. Councilmember Stormwater.
So, as I understood it, it's just an ask to review, right? It's not asking for how to build it, how to fund it. It's just notifying Snohomish County that we need help with 2 pools. And I know you talked about Edmonds, and it's an outdoor pool, so they would get I'm trying to understand the request, just to make sure I understand. It's just for, because, we've talked about this quite a bit before, and if we did a metropolitan park, that isn't any guarantee to have it in the city of Mountlake Terrace. And you had mentioned Shoreline at 1.2, I think, or we had talked about it earlier, and Shoreline is already working on a pool, aren't they, Kyoko? Is it going to vote?
They have a measure scheduled for a vote that's a city-only MPD. And whether that passes or not kind of determines direction for the region.
Yeah, I know we're in Snohomish County and they're not, but I'm just thinking if they did a survey and they see that Shoreline's pool is so close to Mountlake Terrace, would that have any feasibility? So this is just going to be for a study for a pool, that's it right now. That's-
Yeah.
And I'm not downgrading it, I just want to make sure, because I've got a park and rec person in the room too, and I want to make sure when we go back and talk about it at Park and Rec, you know, we come in and we understand what this exactly means.
Yeah, I think the idea behind it would that we would form this MOU, all the cities involved would sign an MOU that they were looking to move forward with this process to hire a consultant that would then assist us with identifying the needs of this regional facility and a potential location or options for locations, and then maybe even what that would look like, since we would know based on the need what would be included inside the facility. So it would be kind of the precursor and would be kind of a hurdle that we would get over with this group, with this regional group, to get to the next step to determine whether everybody wanted to continue to move forward with that next step process, which would include, you know, more further agreements potentially, and then also, you know, looking for further funding and next steps in partnership.
So what they would, if we did get the support on this, what would the deliverable be that would come off the top of what we'd have to spend? Is it going to be saving us, you know, looking for location?
Yeah.
And then the funding part of it, would this allow us to give us feedback on all the funding resources that we could have? Or not have, but, you know, explore?
Yeah, I think that we haven't exactly scoped what the consultant's work would be yet, and we've done an outline of it basically, but we haven't written, you know, the scope for that consultant, what it would look like. But I think that the deliverables would be that feasibility study. So what we would get out of it is it would tell us, you know, based on some of the data that this consultant has already pulled potentially in the region, so they have that data and they would kind of refresh that and be able to look at what is around us, so what pools in the area, and there's been a lot of changes over the years, some pools
Yeah,
have
we
gone
used to
away.
have two in Mountlake Terrace,
Right.
yeah.
And so by taking a look at that data and understanding what everybody actually wants, and then that would help inform that need for a regional pool. And so whether that includes, maybe it needs, I'm throwing things out there, but maybe it needs lap lanes, or maybe they would come up with saying that we need more recreation spaces in the pool, more areas to teach swim lessons for that regional group. So these are all elements that they would take a look at and come back in that study, and they would give that to all the participating entities to say, this is the information we gathered, and these are the different elements, ways you could look at it, different funding sources. So I think that would be the deliverable.
Yeah, because we've gone down in pools. Mountlake Terrace had two, Edmonds had two. They had one at the Y and they closed that one down. A lot of the local gyms, I think there was one in Linwood, and I don't think it's no longer a recreational facility, but so it's not going to cost the city anything to have a ask.
Right, yeah, we're asking for funding from the county, and so that we're asking for the full amount, and there's no guarantee, obviously, that they could support our project but not give us, it could be something less than the full amount. And so what we've talked to all the cities about is everybody potentially pitching in on that, so a different, smaller dollar amount to add up to the whole for each city, but we haven't worked all that out. Depending on what happens with this grant request, I think we'd have to revisit that.
Thank you.
What is the full amount again?
The amount of the request, it's $150,000 for the county.
And this is from the whole county and not just Jared's?
And this is Jared's district, Councilmember Mead's district.
Okay.
Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to applaud staff and really, I think, make sure that I'm like singing the praises of our staff who have really led on this issue, I think, from a regional perspective from my seat. This is I think to Councilmember Sonmore's point, there used to be more pools and the financing around pools is really challenging, which is why you have seen so many pools close and not be replaced. There are not easy solutions here, but we've heard time and again that this is an important issue for our community, and our staff continues to work really hard to try to find solutions. And I think this is an important step in trying to ensure that we don't leave any stones unturned in terms of potential solutions and paths forward. So again, I think just big kudos to our Deputy City Manager and our Parks Director in particular for all of their work and care here. I hope folks hear that and they know that staff is working hard to try to find solutions. And hopefully they are also hearing that those solutions are really challenging, which is why so many different cities are grappling. And I think commend staff, and I know this is not the only place we're doing it, but I think it's a really good example of us coming together collectively with our neighbors to try to find solutions. And so just kudos to both, the Edmonds folks as well as our team here for bringing this forward. And I think in terms of if we were to approve this and move forward, I guess what's the timeline for the grant approval process? And could our community reach out to their council member and encourage support of that if they so chose?
I'm not exactly certain the last time we found out, but I think it's part of the budget process, so it's like November, December type timeframe.
Okay, so there's a little bit of a turnaround time that folks could rally perhaps if they were interested in supporting certain goals and certain spend from our county council members. And I guess just a reminder to all of our residents that you have representative at the local level, but you also have a representative at the county level. And so anyway, I'm very supportive of moving this forward and appreciate all of the work.
All right, any other questions, comments, or feedback? Seeing none, we'll end with mine, which is just to double back to the top of the hour and say thank you for the public comment. It's always helpful to have somebody put a real world, this is how this experience impacts me. I'm calling the pool an experience. And I would also add, we had an event out here, I'll bring that up in a minute here, but I will just say in the short time of meeting a new resident of about 3 years, he was very clear that I've been a Mountlake Terrace fan for a long time. All of my kids came to the pool. And it was just interesting how many times that comes up. I only bring that up because I was talking to another African-American at the time, which is to say everybody likes this pool and everybody uses this pool, but it was just interesting that in a quick 5-minute conversation, the pool came up. So whether we want that to be our identity or not, it is our identity, and therefore I'm also excited to know that we will approach this very soon here with a vote, which is to wrap up with my council mates to say thank you for the flexibility to make sure that we stay with the protocol and do everything prim and proper. And so I appreciate you all taking a couple minutes next Thursday to get together and make this happen. That said, unless there's other comments, feedback, we will move forward to I believe we were at the city manager's. Nope, we are at the review. No, we are at city manager's report.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and members of council. Just a couple things. First, I had in my notes that we have a fifth Thursday and we're not going to have a meeting next week, but we are going to have a short meeting on Thursday. We'll be held online. We won't be here in person to consider this item and have council's vote on that item. Really, the only other thing I wanted to mention, the MLT Community Parade last week was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And we also had the Terrace Summer Nights tonight with the farmers market. This year, that will be the last time that the farmers market will be joining us, but we hope to expand that program next year. And I just also wanted to mention, we heard a lot of feedback at the community parade, and I'll just be very clear that we should bring back Tour de Terrace. The city never ran Tour de Terrace. That was always a private event. We helped with it, but we did not run it or organize it or anything else. The same is true with our current parade, with the MLT Community Parade. It's put on by our great partners at the Chamber of Commerce. Finally, I just wanted to mention next year we are planning to be under construction with the Main Street project on the parade route. So we'll be looking at alternatives for that and working with our partners at the Chamber in order to make that happen. And finally, join us at National Night Out on Tuesday, August 4th, and we'll be over at Evergreen, and that's going to be a good time. So that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments, feedback for the city manager? Seeing none, and you saved us time because that was 3 of the things I was going to talk about in 4, so nicely done. Let's move on to the review of the August 6th. I hope you've had a chance. Oh, question, comment, or feedback from
What
Councilmember
is
Sonmore?
Station Melodies?
Yeah, I know that answer, but
Station Melodies, there was a student at UW that came, University of Washington, that came and talked to council about 3 or 4 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. But he was only able to talk about the station melodies during public comment, which is limited to 5 minutes, and we wanted to schedule him to come back as a presentation item, so he had a little bit more time.
yeah, and I was going to say, I really appreciate that we come back to a very youth-focused or centric meeting. So that should be really exciting for those of us who really like our youth, which is all 7 of us. Any concerns other than that? Clarifications on the regular meeting? All right, then we'll move to council comments. Any council comments? Councilmember Matsumoto Wright.
I just want to thank the staff for putting together that float for all of us so that it, yes, Carolyn Hope and, well, quite a few others. Yes, yes, and the ride back too, so we didn't have to walk back. So I just wanted to thank everybody, and I don't know if everyone took pictures of the float. I see pictures of partial float, but I took one that was empty. But
Yeah.
I just,
Send it. We'd love to post that.
okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just wanted to just thank you guys in person.
Appreciate that, and I have a feeling that Councilmember Doyle has a rider, pun intended. Please. Oh.
No, I don't.
I thought you were
No,
going to
no
share
comment.
your idea. That's low-hanging fruit, your idea that you had while we were on the float. You don't want to share that?
I'm afraid to ask which idea I had on the float.
All right, well, Councilmember Murray will bring it home.
I know, because I've been looking
no,
forward
I'm
to
not
it for
bringing that
almost
up
an
right now.
entire week. So it's every Friday night, moving forward, council is going to roll around town in our amazing new float, and we're going to have little designated stops where we sit. We're going to move community
Right, oh,
conversations to our Friday float parade. I'm totally sold on the idea. I think it would be super fun and a great community engagement idea. So yes, credit to Councilmember Doyle, but I'm all in on it. So I just need to know what time to be here.
Yeah, and really that's kudos to the float. I think there was concern that we're doing something different. And as much as I valued my time always with the different drivers, it was wonderful to be together with all of you. My favorite part, and I don't know if Councilmember Sonmore thought it was her favorite part, was when her friends said yes, and I don't know if you saw, we did jazz hands for you. So it was just, I thought that was hilarious, but fun, right? Because it was like you can see your people and they see you, and it's just a chance to celebrate each other. But to be all together, I just thought, what a wonderful compromise, because we couldn't get the car club this year, that we didn't just give up on it. I was ready to walk. That's what I've done in the past. But I really did like the float, so that's really to give you that credit. And I was going to share this story, but now I'm going to give it now because I have the microphone, and it's about your float. I had a very humbling moment, which I don't know how the rest of you experienced the parade, but when people identify you, 20 people identify you. So you're already in this, hi, I don't know who you are, but thank you, and all that. And so I was standing next to the float on our side with my name, right? So I'm just saying, I've already gotten used to people saying, hey, yeah, you. And this woman walked up, and it does matter that she was black, because that just lended to this familial thing. Yeah. She's like, can I do a photo? I said, oh, yeah, let's do it. And me and my selfies. So I go to do a selfie, and she's like, wait, what are you doing? I thought you said you wanted a photo. She said, no, I want a photo of the float and me in front of it. Oh, my God, I've never been so embarrassed in my life. It was great, but that's how awesome your float was. She was like, no, I want this. And she had no idea who the heck I was. And that led to some fun times. Sam was there. I got to introduce Sam to her. But it was just one of those where it's like, your float really did take center stage. So I now share that willingly and with joy in my heart, because it really was awesome. You already mentioned National Night Out. I'll just remind you, don't fight Smokey. If he's asking you to take a photo, just do the photo with Smokey. I was going to say, I feel like I should point out, I know Wes is in the background there, but if you zoomed in on my hat, I'm informal for a reason. I wanted you to show these great hats and to give kudos to whoever our staff member was that recognized, hey, we're missing an opportunity that's really low-hanging fruit. People love hats. We need to advertise that this is a thing, and when you put it on a hat, it becomes a thing. And so these are summer Terrace nights. Yes, so it's Terrace, yeah, I was going to say it. So it's Terrace Summer Nights. It's just the logo itself. Really slick. I was in Japan when I saw it and immediately said, you better hold one of those because if they sell out, I'm going to be pissed. So I, bought it and all that, but nonetheless, I was that moved by it. Thank you, Wes. And it's just a really slick design. So just kudos because, again, it's not about it making money. It's about people wanting to associate with something, which is to say for folks who didn't know, and you just heard our city manager mention it, we did have our last music in the plaza, but we still have one more music over at Terrace Creek Park next Thursday, and then we will switch to movies in the park, which is a reminder that we are running out of daylight, if you haven't noticed that. So please do get out there and enjoy your residents, protect your joy. And then on that last one, just to give you all an update, if you're interested, not this Friday, but Friday the 31st, so I want to say 4 o'clock, in Edmonds at the Waterfront Center, and maybe eventually we'll bring it up here to Lake Ballinger, but right now it's going to be in the bay over there. They're doing the dragon boat races, and I bring that up to let you know, as my deputy city manager looked over at me immediately, that you have 2 of your city folks that are going to be on those dragon boats trying to win, deputy city manager and your mayor. I think we're going to be going up against the police and the fire department, so I don't have high hopes. You just learned that. Yeah, we're there for the, hey, we get involved, not for the victory. But the dragon boat races, it's a cultural experience, so I'm strongly encouraging folks, again, just to get out and be a part of that, but know that Mountlake Terrace was able to send some folks over there as well. So if you're free, do take the time. You will not be disappointed. And if you're thinking you want to ride the dragon boat, if you're listening, they do have signups for that as well, which you can look up on your own for that. Other than that, I will say if there's any other council comments, and seeing none, we're at the bittersweet time, which is to say I'll see you in August, with the exception of our short meeting next week online, and we are adjourned.